Good evening.
No, just myself and my son.
Could I call this town council meeting to order? Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda, announcement. Eileen, do you have any announcements?
How does this work? Okay. Yes.
And then I'll do mine.
Oh, you usually do yours first.
I'll do mine first.
Whatever you want.
Okay. On behalf of the Merrimack Town Council, we would like to extend our condolences to the friends and family of Robert Brundage, who passed away on March 12th at the age of 85. Robert was elected as a New Hampshire State Representative for 6 terms, was a former Merrimack Selectman from 1979 to 1994, and was a member on the Merrimack Planning Board, the Merrimack Budget Committee, the Merrimack Parks and Recreation Committee, the Merrimack Action Board of the Merrimack Adult Community Center Board of Directors. He was the founder of the Merrimack Veterans Memorial Park in 1982, of which the entrance to the park was proclaimed Robert W. Brundage Way, in honor of Bob. His contributions were many, and Bob will be greatly missed. Could we please have a moment of silence? Thank you very much. Other announcements. On Thursday, April 9th at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room in Town Hall is a regular council meeting. On Tuesday, April 14th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the James Mastercola Upper Elementary School, all-purpose room right here, will be voting day. And on Thursday, April 23rd at 7 p.m., again in the Matthew Thornton Room, is a regular council meeting. Now, Eileen, do you have any announcements?
I do. Absentee ballots for the second section of the town and school district meeting voting day are available at the town clerk's office. Any voter who will be unable to appear at any time during the polling hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. due to employment, or who will otherwise be absent from town on election day, or who is unable to go to the polls due to a physical disability or religious observance, may vote by absentee ballot. Voters must send a signed written request for an absentee ballot to the town clerk, or download and complete an absentee ballot request form from the town's website in the town clerk's section under elections and voting. Absentee ballots can only be given or mailed directly to the person making the request. Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the Kinder Morgan proposed Northeast Energy Direct Pipeline Project. What we've done in the past, just to let everyone know they might not know, is we have purposely put this topic at the beginning of the agendas for the town meetings. We usually have a process whereby we talk about any additional informational reports we have or any other updates, and we basically provide the status of action items that we're working on. Because of this evening's meeting, I'm going to forego that because I don't think that's necessary. We're going to be dealing at 8 o'clock with the pipeline. I do want to change a little, let you know about a little bit of change, though. I had previously told everyone how we're going to do the procedure. It's going to be a little bit of change. Previously, I had said after the presentation, the town departments were going to ask their questions, then town councilors first, then town departments, and then the residents. We're going to put the town departments after the residents. I think what our priority is to provide as much time to the residents as possible. There may be a question or two from the town council prior to moving over to the residents, but then it's going to be questions from the residents. And if there's time available, we will have the town departments ask their questions. If for some reason we don't have time, we're going to submit those questions in writing, and when we get a response, we'll make sure we post them on the website. Okay? Just a reminder for some people, hopefully you've noticed, as you came in, if you intend to ask questions, you need to sign in and put your address in, because we're going to make sure that residents of Merrimack have priority. There may be other people who attend this evening, and we want to make sure that Merrimack gets first dibs. Okay? And if anyone, does anyone have any comments? Usually I allow the audience to make comments now, but no? Okay, good. Are there any general comments from the press or public about anything else that's on the agenda? Don't run up now. Okay. So why don't we go right ahead and start our recognitions, resignations, and retirement. Acceptance of resignation of Cynthia Wahola from the Agricultural Commission. The Town Council to accept the resignation of Cynthia Wahola from the Merrimack Agricultural Commission, which she served as a member since May 2009.
Move approval with regret.
Second.
Motion by Bill Boyd, second by Tom Mahon. Would you like to speak to the motion, Mr. Boyd?
Thank you. Just very briefly, I want to publicly thank Cynthia for her 6 years of service to the Agricultural Commission. Key component of being a part of starting the farmers market here in town, so I certainly want to thank her for her commitment to not just the farmers market, but promoting agriculture in Merrimack. So thank you, Cynthia, and best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I think that summarizes it.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any? Okay, 700. There are no appointments. There are no public hearing. There's going to be a big hearing following this. Legislative updates from state representatives. Any state reps that want to say anything? No. Town Manager's report. Eileen.
Okay, President Obama has approved the disaster declaration for the January 26th snowstorm. We have requested reimbursement for approximately $47,000 and are waiting for word from the state when we will be receiving the reimbursement. We will be coming to the Town Council once the reimbursement is received for your approval and acceptance. At the last meeting, you approved $2,000 for electronic message boards to advertise for the April 14th election. I am pleased to let you know that the Public Works Department has arranged with surrounding communities to borrow these electronic message boards for free. Thank you.
Nice, thank you.
Thank God.
Yeah, good going. Okay, there's nothing on the consent agenda, nor there's no old business. Okay, new business. Obviously, we're rushing along, as you can tell by the agenda. Not that we have to rush. I'm looking at it. We've tried to make this agenda very abbreviated because we want to make sure we finish no later than 7:45, so we can leave. They can finish setting up, and hopefully they will be here by 8. I did receive a phone call. They might be a couple of minutes late, but hopefully they'll be on time or soon thereafter. Okay? Okay, new business. Donation acceptance for the Merrimack Police Department submitted by Lieutenant Denise Roy. The Town Council to consider the acceptance of a donation of ballistic strike armor vest from the Rotary Club of Merrimack. And I'll have you give all the information.
Turned. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the Council, Paul, Eileen. Thank you for allowing us to go in front of you today. A couple of months ago, we were approached by Merrimack Rotary in asking us if we could think of some equipment that they could donate to the school resource officer at Merrimack High School. Because we work closely with the schools are always very generous with us. If there's equipment that Mike needs that we cannot give him, they make sure that we try to get him. There's one thing, however, that he is lacking, and what that is it's called a strike body armor. And Mike wears a regular protective vest every day. That protective vest is what every officer wears. It's very comfortable I wouldn't say very comfortable, but it's comfortable enough for them. It's not heavy. So they wear that every day. But those ballistic vests only stop certain handgun rounds. I think everyone knows and everyone listens to the news, there are several school shootings that happen. There's several incidents that happen in town along with in the schools. So one of the things that Mike doesn't have access to at the high school is one of these specialized pieces of body armor. It's very cumbersome. It's heavy. It weighs about 20 pounds when all the ballistic plates are put in it. So it's not something that the officers wear daily because they just wouldn't be able to. The other officers do have access to these in the trunks of their cruisers, and they're readily available to them if they need to put one on. But Mike doesn't have, Detective Murray does not have that ability at the high school. So to go along the lines of everything that, we at the police department try to do to keep our, a safe learning environment, one of the things that we also want to do is make sure that Mike is safe as well. So what we have come up with after talking to Mike and with the Rotary is I provided you with some background information with this strike vest. This vest would be specifically for Detective Murray at the school. He would keep it locked in his office, readily available to him if he needs it, but nobody else would have access to it. This vest allows him to be able to be protected from high-caliber handgun ammunition as well as rifles. So it works in conjunction with his regular vest. He throws it on over his uniform, and it has that ability to be just that much safer. We don't want to say it will never happen in Merrimack, but what we do like to say is if it does happen, we've given the officers the tools to keep themselves safe along with everybody else in the school. So I don't know. I'm here. I think you might have Mr. Snow, Brian Snow, on your agenda. It's actually not him. He's someplace warm and sunny. Maureen Mooney is here from Merrimack Rotary if you have any questions for her as well as a representative of the Rotary.
Thank you, Lieutenant, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Town Council. I'm here tonight to represent the Merrimack Rotary Club. I'm president-elect of the club. My name is Maureen Mooney, for the record. And I would just like to state just how pleased we are to be able to fundraise for the community and provide this service and this vest to the Merrimack Police Department and the community at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She's much quicker than I am. One thing I did forgot to mention that the total cost for the vest to include the carrier, which I did provide you a picture of, it's not really anything to look at, but the carrier and the armor plates that go inside, what really weighs the most, goes inside the vest. And the total for that is $677.79.
Excellent. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lieutenant, the vest is strictly going to be worn in an active shooter tactical situation. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we're hoping that the only time Officer Detective Murray ever has to use it is during training. But the only other time is if, God forbid, there were an active shooter or an incident inside the school, and then he would put it on. He wouldn't be walking around all day with it. He wouldn't want to. It weighs more than he does.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, and I have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
Oh, we had a fight over that. Okay, Councilor Tom Mahon first, second by Councilor Tom Koenig. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 700.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the new business, consideration of proposed zoning ordinance amendments, first reading, submitted by Community Development Director Tim Thompson, who's standing in front of us now. The Town Council to consider the proposed zoning ordinance amendments as recommended by the Planning Board. And I'll let you explain what the changes are.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the council. Going back to last summer, my department was requested by staff in the town manager's office to make some changes to the junkyard section of the ordinance to update it concurrent with some updated state statutory language. In doing that, we've noticed that there were still several references in that section to the former Board of Selectmen. So in doing so, we decided we might as well go through the entire ordinance and find all the instances of Board of Selectmen and change that to Town Council. In doing that, what we decided to do at the encouragement of the Planning Board is take an examination of the entire ordinance to find any outdated references to state law, sections of the ordinance that were changed, that the references had not been changed for, as well as making some corrections to make sure that everything is concurrent with the current departmental structure in the form of government with Merrimack. So what you have in front of you is a series of amendments to sections 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, and 17 The only real substantive changes to the ordinance that are in front of you as part of these proposals is a slight modification to the definition of junk to add some additional items that would qualify to be considered junk under our junkyard ordinance. And outside of that, you're really talking about clarifications and corrections to references and sections of state law. I'd certainly be glad to answer any particular questions you have with any particular section, but there are a number of these items, and I wouldn't want to spend the next hour going through each individual item in the list. But I'd certainly open to any questions you may have.
No, it's pretty obvious. Questions? Yes, Councilor Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tim, page 1-2, item 6 under aquifer.
Yes.
You're adding "or as most recently published by the United States Geological Survey."
Correct.
Is there anything published out there?
I don't believe there's anything that has been updated since the previous reference in 1977. However, we don't want to have to come back every time USGS, should they change those maps and information, have to come back to the council each and every time to.
So that's CYA language.
Exactly. It's so that myself or future community development directors don't have to come back every time USGS changes the maps to change that date to make sure it's up to date.
Okay. Going down to line 12, Community Development Director, is the word administrator the correct word?
I did not change the language. That definition was previously called planning director.
Okay.
And so all I did was retitle it to community development director without making any substantive change to the definition. I'm certainly open to any suggestions the council may have with that. But I did not want to try. All I was really trying to do in the definition section was make sure that the references to the positions were correct.
I mean, I tried to come up with, it was difficult.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not so sure what, to me, an administrator that kind of downgrades what the level of responsibility you have to the community, which is why. So, I mean, if you come up with something for a second, you know, something for us to look at, I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could I move on, please?
Absolutely.
Thank
Continue.
you. Excuse me, page 1-5. Let's talk about the update to junk,
Sure.
because I'm all about junk. This is strictly the definition clause that you're adding to.
Correct.
Correct. Is there any need to? I'm looking at enforcement. The reason why I ask is because we talk about unregistered motor vehicles or used motor parts. You know, I have my dog truck. I still have the flatbed of my dog truck sitting in the backyard under my shed that's still in relatively good condition. So the question beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Everything is subjective. So
What you want to do is go down to the next definition, which is number 29, junkyard.
junkyard, okay.
Which says that if you're exceeding 200 square feet in area, that's when the definition becomes applicable for enforcement
So we
purposes.
define the yard, and then we define what needs to be in the
Correct.
yard. Okay, thank you.
Continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 1-6. Under Planning and Zoning Administrator, you have appointed official. That's your hire. That's,
Correct.
you know, we don't, the town council doesn't have a say.
That's one of the reasons why further along in these set of amendments, there's a complete change to the section on planning and zoning administrator,
Okay.
which
I mean,
previously...
you know what? I saw that.
That is on
I saw that.
page... Six, 7-1, which is the 31st page of the attachment.
Okay. Yep, I highlighted it, sorry. Okay,
Again, it was one of those conscious decisions of not wanting to substantively change the definition unless we absolutely had to.
I'm probably quibbling over semantics. I apologize.
That's quite all right.
Bear with me, Madam Chair.
Continue.
Thank you. Under section 502 and 503, page 5-1, where we talk about the residential district may, upon application thereof, be licensed by the town council. No junkyard shall be permitted unless licensed by the town council. Do we need to include anywhere else in the ordinance that, because the town council has delegated authority
Correct.
to the town manager to have discretion over licenses? I mean, obviously, we're not talking like a common victuals license or
Correct.
the raffle license is a much different license. So do we need to include anything else in the ordinance that would show that the town council is the ordaining authority?
I don't necessarily think you need to, as that has been operating for the last several years, even though that responsibility has been delegated to the town
Right.
council, with the word simply stating Board of Selectmen, as has been previously written in the ordinance. So I think you're still okay
Okay.
based on the way the resolution was done previously.
Okay. And just so that I understand, on page 8-2, under the language for the variances,
Yes.
so it's 2 and 6? Am I reading that right?
Excuse me.
The
Oh,
special
the new
exception's good for 2
the new
years.
state law, correct. That is a new
That's-
state law that was enacted 2014.
Okay. And then, I apologize, circling back under section 6, under building inspector.
Yes.
What page, Bill?
There's no page listed, so I'm going to say it's 6-1.
It's 6-1.
Or it'll say attachment
Okay.
page 29 to 40.
Gotcha.
Again, it reads, "The town council shall appoint a town building official."
That is something, if the council so desires, I could change to be consistent with how I handle the planning and zoning administrator section for the public hearing.
I would like to see something like that, because I think that's,
I
unless,
agree with
okay.
Get more?
I'm good. I just was going to thank Tim.
Okay.
It's mundane, but I really appreciate the,
It is, but I think overall it's going to assist us in making future revisions to the ordinance as we continue with master plan implementation, to have the ordinance completely up to date and up to speed with the references and statutory requirements. Will certainly make our job easier as we move forward.
okay. Tim, seriously, thank you. Good work. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I just have I don't want to assume anything. I know that you were very careful in listing different sections, but you did omit sections 4, 10 through 13, 15, and 16. Does that mean there were no changes within those sections?
That's correct.
Very good. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, move the proposed zoning ordinance with modifications be moved to a second reading.
Second.
Second by Lon Woods. Okay, original motion, Councilor Boyd, second by Councilor Woods. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 700.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Just for scheduling purposes, if this could be added for public hearing on the April 23rd agenda, both myself and Donna Poli are already slated to be in attendance that night for the Bike Ped presentation.
So kill two birds with
That
one
would be
stone.
appreciated.
I think we can arrange that.
Thank you.
Duly noted, Eileen. Okay, well, we are finishing sooner than we thought. Okay, the town council is going to go into recess. We are going to be reconvene after the presentation. Okay? So I'd like to have a motion to recess until after the questions and answers. Motion made by Councilor Boyd. Second. Second by Councilor Mahan. All those in favor? Aye. Any against? None. 700.
We're in
Yes.
recess at 7:30.
Say that again?
We're in recess at 7:30.
Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it's me again. Now that Kinder Morgan has arrived, we're going to start the meeting. And pardon me if I read, this is a little bit different. This meeting will be run under the rules of order that we use at our town meetings, with a couple of modifications. Since there are quite a few people who wish to ask questions and speak, we will limit each speaker to the traditional 3 minutes. You may come back after others have had their chance at the podium and speak a second time. I would ask that you have your thoughts in order so that you may be able to express them in this time frame. I would also remind you that there are a number of different opinions represented in this room and that you recognize that not all may be agreeable with you. Despite that, I will require you to be considerate of those with differing opinions, acknowledge their right to them, and treat them with the respect that the town of Merrimack residents have always done in public forum. Civility has always prevailed here in Merrimack and will do so in this meeting tonight. I will also expect Kinder Morgan representatives to adhere to these principles. And since they have established the limited time that they will be here, I will ask that they provide concise answers to questions and not go into broader, more expansive answers than the question requires. There is a list on the table at the front of the room where you entered that enabled you to sign up as wishing to ask a question or speak. I will be using that list to recognize Merrimack residents first to speak. If you have not signed up, feel free to do so at any time during this meeting. Brian has a second list that I will be drawing from. If you're from another town and wish to speak, you'll be allowed to do so after Merrimack residents have had a first shot at it. You'll need to sign the list, as again, I'll be recognizing people from this list only. I'm going to start by introducing the gentleman from Kinder Morgan, and they just swapped their order, so I'm going to take a shot at this. To my immediate left is Matt. I'm going to use first names only just to make it easier. Matt is, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Curtis Cole is the Business Development Director. And Mark Hemmerich is the Project Management. And Jim Hartman is the Land. So those are the 4 gentlemen that are here tonight that will address your questions that you have to ask. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to give them 15 minutes to go through their sales presentation, and then we'll address any questions that you folks have.
Thank you, Lynn. So this is our project presentation. This is the Northeast Energy Direct project. I'm going to stand because it's easier, so we're not sitting. So just a little bit about Kinder Morgan. So we only have 15 minutes, so there's a lot of slides, so I'm going to cycle through some pretty quickly. So Kinder Morgan's the largest midstream energy company. So what that means is we don't drill for energy. We also don't sell it. We are the transporter. So we are the largest pipeline company in North America. This is our system. I'm going to move that water bottle because that's just going to the whole time be like that. So these are existing pipelines that go throughout North America. Pretty much what we're going to be focusing on today is this pink line that you see. It's the TGP line. It's the Tennessee Gas Pipeline. So this is a closer image of that. It's 14,000 miles of pipe. It starts, you can see, up there in the northeast, going all the way down to the southeast. You can see highlighted the Marcellus and Utica shales. Marcellus shale is the most prolific shale play in all of North America. That's where all the gas that comes into England now, that's where it comes from. These are our existing shippers on our Tennessee Gas pipeline. These are all our customers that already exist, including Liberty Utilities right at the top. So I'm sure you're all familiar. That's the largest gas provider in the state of New Hampshire. They're also our customer currently. You see some of the other customers like Granite Ridge on the power generation side. So these are the municipalities within the state that already have existing pipelines. So you can see the 3 counties, 10 different towns. They've all had pipeline, and we've been operating in the state of New Hampshire for 60 years. This is what right-of-way looks like. So you can see if you've ever seen in some of the towns, and normally you don't. I have 2 pipelines in my town. I never knew they existed before I started working for Kinder Morgan, just because I know how to find them by the postmarks. These are what we get a lot of questions about, what other infrastructure would come with a pipeline. You can see right here in Pelham, that's a picture of a compressor station. It's another view of it. It's a valve station, meter station. These are the common structures that come with pipelines. And there won't be a compressor station here that's cited to be somewhere closer to New Ipswich. So this is our footprint in the state of New Hampshire. Like I said, we operate 50 miles of pipe. Currently, we're paying $1.7 million to state and taxing bodies. That's based on valuated pipe. That's the pipe we already have, or the infrastructure like the compressor stations. Now I'm going to turn it over to Curtis Cole. He's our business development director. And he's going to kind of go over the commercial piece to this and describe the need for the project. Curtis?
Thank you, Matt. Pleasure to be here tonight. I actually recognize several folks that have come to either our town halls or our open houses. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. This slide here is designed to show you where the gas that is coming into New England, where it's sourced from. And I'm going to scroll back real quick to a map because I think it better shows you. When we built the Tennessee Gas Pipeline, it started down here, as Matt said, and it flowed on a south to north basis all the way into New England. That's the way it's always flowed. Used to get our gas, the bulk of the gas offshore, Texas, Oklahoma, it comes into the system and flows up. That's all changed. The reason that's changed is because of this. As Matt referred to earlier, is the Marcellus Shale. That's completely changed the plumbing on our system. Now what you have is a situation where gas comes in, flows south. This gas flows this way. We're completely full coming in. The reason we're full is because there's such a high demand for the low-cost gas in Marcellus, we don't have any room on it. That's why the Northeast Energy Direct project is being built. We are responding to our customers. So what you see here is 2008, very small amount of Marcellus Shale. Now the projected is going to be 92% of the gas burned in New England is going to come from that source. It's the most prolific shale play in all of North America. In addition, on the power generation side, you went from 5%, I think 15 years ago, burned for natural gas is to generate power up to 52% in 2012. The number is even higher today. That's where you're getting a lot of your electricity is coming from gas-fired generation. So that number is increasing, which, next slide. This is from the president and CEO of ISO New England. He's identifying the problem here. The problem is it's an already constrained natural gas infrastructure, and when that happens and it's cold and you don't get gas to the power generators, prices go up. Gas and electricity are highly correlated. As gas prices go up, electricity prices go up. Competitive Energy Services did an analysis and provided a report, and they basically said that if you add 2.4 BCF a day of pipeline capacity to the region, not our pipe, but pipes, you eliminate what they call the pricing differential or the basis differential between Pennsylvania and New England. In New England, you have the highest energy prices in all of the contiguous United States. Only Hawaii has higher energy prices than you do. That's largely because of not enough gas, low-cost gas being able to go to power generation. So that's where we're at. The estimate was if you added that amount of capacity, you'd save $3 billion a year. Oh, this is NESCO, New England States Committee on Electricity. The governors have asked NESCO to come up with a solution to fix the power generation problem. I'll get into that in the Q&A. Next slide. This is a quick slide to show you the various sources of generation. You got gas, coal, oil, nuclear, wind, solar, and hydro. These are some moratoriums in Massachusetts. I'm not going to even talk about Massachusetts. These are our customers. National Grid, 186,000. Liberty Utilities, second largest customer on our system. These are the customers that came to us and said, can you get us all the way back to Marcellus, lowest cost gas? We said, yes, we can do that. So they've signed up. They've executed long-term precedent agreements. They're going to anchor our project. And with that, I forward it on back to Matt.
Thanks, Curtis. So this is our proposed project schedule. So the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, is the overseeing organization for all of these projects across the country. So this is our proposed timeline with FERC right here on the right. So we're in the pre-filing phase. Many of you attended the open houses that we just had. We had 5 in New Hampshire. That's a part of the formal process, a part of the pre-filing phase. This is not a part of the formal process. We do this as a company because we want to. We want to answer your questions. We want to be responsive. That's not a part of the process. We've done 60, 70 different town presentations all across this project, just like this, either run by the Board of Selectmen or on our own, and that's just to inform the public, and that's a separate part. So this pre-filing process will take us through the rest of the year. We would propose to file at the end of the year in 2015, likely September, and then that would take us into anticipated FERC approval. And so the FERC either decides to give a certificate or they don't. That's how all of these projects work. So that would happen fourth quarter 2016, proposed start of construction activity January 2017, proposed in-service November 2018. So it's a long process. Keep in mind that we're right at the beginning in the pre-filing. Another piece of this is regulatory oversight. I mentioned the FERC. That's the overarching the agency that oversees these projects. There's also the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, EPA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And there's also a major state component to this. So you see New Hampshire DES, New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, as well as locally the town conservation commissions. So in the fall, like I mentioned, when we would be filing concurrently permits at both the federal and state level. And I'm going to hand it over to Mark Hamrich, who's our project manager, and he's going to kind of give you an overview of the project scope and then get into some of the construction details.
This is going to be pretty quick, so we want to save time for Q&A. I don't know how much time we have left on our presentation, but this is the project. The Northeast Energy Direct project starts in Pennsylvania, comes up to Wright, New York, across, and in through Massachusetts into New Hampshire, into Merrimack, down into Dracut. The black lines are our existing pipelines. This is the FERC review process. I don't want to go through this, but it is online on FERC.gov. It's a good process. It's a good outline of the process. A lot of public opportunities during the process, and we want to stress that. A lot of public opportunities to participate. I know a lot of folks in Merrimack know the website because we get the emails and comments and whatever, so that's appreciated. These are the New Hampshire towns that are impacted by the project that we pass through. There's just a map where we enter in the western part of the state, go to the east, cross from Merrimack into Litchfield, across the Merrimack River. Real quick on construction. Construction process, we'll break this 400-mile project into spreads. Say we have 10 spreads, 40 miles of spread for a contractor. They'll come in, spread as a definition, contractor, crew, and equipment. They'll staff up. They have separate crews to run through the process. It's a wagon train event, a wagon train process. Stake the right-of-way. They start with clearing, grading, welding, stringing the pipe, welding, putting the weld pipe in, backfill, cleanup, restoration. We have a team of right-of-way agents out here. I think several people have probably been contacted for survey permission. Jim Hartman on the stage here leads our right-of-way team. Our team will be with us all the way through construction. We talk about co-location, power lines here. This green is depicting the power line. This is the pipeline just outside the power line and additional workspace during construction. It'll revert back to a 50-foot easement. We'd like to use as much of the power line easement as possible. We're still in discussions with the power line. So once we define the locations of poles, where we're at, we're still in the process of fine-tuning our route. But there's this picture is in the FERC filing with the distances here. 65 feet within the power line corridor, 35 feet out, reverting to 50 feet after construction. Horizontal directional drilling. We're proposing now to cross the Merrimack River from Merrimack into Litchfield using the directional drilling method. Right now it's laid out as a 2,300-foot drill. We set up on one side with the drilling equipment. We drill a pilot hole. It's all controlled, GIS system, so we can hit that stake within 2 or 3 feet on the other side along a curved radius that the pipeline can be eventually pulled through. And there's a reaming process here. It's a non-intrusive process. There is some surface disturbance here and a 200 by, say, 250 site on each side. Nothing in between is disturbed. Proposed compressor station. We have one planned in New Hampshire, not in Merrimack, so I'll go through that. Environmental considerations. We consider environmental from the day we start our route evaluation, conduct field surveys. One of the things we're looking for now is survey permission to get out here and get the data to put our environmental impact statements together. And during construction, we have environmental inspectors through construction all the way through the restoration and several years after to make sure that we've got everything restored and back to normal. Tennessee Gas has committed to safety. Safety and environmental are non-compromised values at Kinder Morgan. As project manager, that's one of our primary focuses, to ensure that we drive safety and environmental to all levels. As far as safety and construction, all the welds are x-rayed, all the pipe is hydrostatically tested, where you put water in the pipe, tested to a pressure higher than you'll ever operate. And during the life of the project, we have an operations team that monitors this project from gas control center, aerial patrols, and other comprehensive safety programs. The route in Merrimack follows the power line for the most part, deviates a little at the highway crossing, the turnpike. There's the drill across the river. These alignment sheets, the town maps were passed out here that show a 400-foot survey corridor. These alignment sheets are in the FERC filing, a little more detail.
Thanks, Mark. So close on time, right, Lynn? So we'll keep going. But so project benefits, we talked about some of it with local taxes, but total tax income from the state just for this project, like I mentioned before, we already pay taxes. It works just like property taxes, except it's valued on the pipe. We've already been paying that in New Hampshire for 50 plus years, so it would be the same exact process. So we're expecting an additional $11.2 million to local taxing bodies in the state of New Hampshire. You saw on the previous slide over $500,000 in the first year, right here. And then as far as job creation, some of you may have heard the laborers union is here. Some of the gentlemen and women in the orange T-shirts, those are the laborers union. We've already signed memorandum agreements with them across the project. So across these 5 states that are part of this project, this is 3,000 construction jobs, all 100% labor. And then the other piece of this is going to be gas supply. So that's really what we're talking about. That's what Curtis was talking about with energy reliability, with increased capacity for the region, especially here in New England where we have such high energy costs. So we're looking at our customer in New Hampshire, our largest customer is Liberty Utilities. They're already looking at expansion throughout the state. They have been for a long time. This project enables them to do that. It enables them to expand into towns, support more businesses, keep your businesses here, allow manufacturers to stay, not to leave, and that's all part of that process of economic development. So we've done a lot as far as outreach, clearly. You've been to the open houses, but these are some of the people that we've connected with, from all the way from the governor's office, both the Senate offices, congressional offices, you got your legislature, all the way down to your local board of selectmen. So we've gotten extensive outreach. We keep in touch with all of them, as well as we do with landowners. These are all our project presentations to date, this being one of them after Pelham. And then you went to the open houses, and that's it. So we'll go to Q&A.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to my list of speakers. I'm going to start with Deb Huffman, followed by Michelle Watson, followed by Wendy Thomas. And I'll give you I'm sorry. Nancy. Town council is first. Excuse me, Deb. Go, Nancy.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Bill Boyd. I'm one of the town councils. In your most recent filing with FERC Resource Report number 11, specifically 11.2.1, as it relates to the design specifications, what class pipeline is being proposed?
The pipeline is still under design. If it's a high density area through here, it's likely going to be class 3, but our engineering company is doing our population study. It's based on population along the route and high consequence areas, and in our June filing we will have that class locations and valving locations identified.
So is it fair to say in the letter that you submitted to FERC, which specifically stated that you've done your abutter research, that it's still incomplete?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
In the letter that you submitted to FERC, the abutters information as it relates to every abutter along the pipeline is considered confidential in your letter. Do you know what?
The names.
Right, the names. So my question to you is that list still being completed?
I'm going to defer that to Jim, who's on the land.
Because the reason why I'm asking that question, based on my understanding of of how you design the class pipelines, and I'm just using layman's terms, you should be able to ascertain whether you're going to put a class 2 or a class 3 pipeline along that route based on doing your abutters information.
Yes, it's just something that our engineering company has not finished yet.
But this has nothing to do with engineering,
Bill,
sir.
let him finish.
This has to do whether you're proposing to put a class 3 or a class 3 pipeline. The difference being class 2 doesn't use an odorant and a class 3 uses an odorant. And that is causing concern with people in this community.
The entire pipeline will be odorized. The entire pipeline will be odorized. It'll be odorized when it leaves New York State.
Regardless if it's class 2 or class 3?
Regardless if it's class 2 or class 3.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we're going to go to my list. We're going to start with Deb, go to Michelle, go to Wendy, and Bruce, you're after that. And I will kind of give you an alert as to where you're coming up in line. Go ahead, Deb.
Hi, Deborah Huffman. Last year, the New England governors commissioned a report on New England's energy needs, and you referenced that. The report concluded that in the coming years, we will need more gas. The call went out, and proposals came in. There are now enough pipeline proposals to fill our future gas needs many times over. We are getting lots and lots of gas from projects like Atlantic Bridge, Access Northeast, Algonquin Incremental Expansion, Continent to Coast, Connecticut Expansion, which is one of Tennessee Gas's expansions, on and on. Lots of gas coming in. The interesting thing is that those other projects use existing pipeline easements. They're mostly projects to replace smaller pipes with bigger ones, mostly not taking people's land, not cutting through new neighborhoods, existing pipelines. Yours is the only company that wants to dig a brand new trench, cutting across our state, cutting through people's yards, their farms, cutting through our nature preserve, completely new territory. All these other projects, for the most part, the vast majority, use existing pipeline footprint. So, with all these other projects being proposed that will provide abundant gas, why in the world should anyone support your project? That's my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Deb, and I'll address part of that, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues. The reason that we moved along the power line, we always had the power line as one of our alternate routes from the very beginning. We've analyzed 9 different paths. We were in Massachusetts, and the more we looked at this route as the alternate route, and the more we worked with regulators and stakeholders, and the more we analyzed the impact to landowners, we actually have a less of an impact than if we were going along our existing line. These other pipeline projects that I'm well aware of, They also have looping and some greenfield. Some of it is taking out a 26-inch diameter pipeline and putting in a 42-inch, a 3.5-foot wide diameter pipeline. A lot of that is because there's nowhere for else to go. So there's 25 feet on either side are some buildings. Any pipeline project impacts people. This project, as we analyzed it, actually minimizes the impact to landowners than any other route that we could have chose. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark. Mark's saying maybe I'm misinterpreting the question about the market need. We respond to what our customers request. We don't build a 2.2 BCF 36-inch pipeline unless we have 2.2 BCF of market. So I'll go into that in great detail later because I'm hitting my 3 minutes. We will build to what we have market for. There's no pipeline project allowed to file with FERC that just puts in whatever they want. That's not how the system works. The proposed project that Spectra is proposing, Algonquin's Access Northeast, doesn't have any customers just yet. They will get customers. We both expect power generation customers to be added for both our pipelines because that's what this problem is all about, getting more gas capacity to the region.
Thank you, Kurt. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Watson. This is my third time listening to you gentlemen this week, and what has become clear is that I feel like you're missing a lot of information in your presentations. You show the beautiful pictures of the right-of-way, but you don't show what it looks like in the meantime during construction. I walked through my neighborhood, and I saw the power lines, and I'm looking where that construction would go, and it's going to go all through my neighbors' backyards, who have kids, who have babies, and none of those pictures are here. People are listening to your presentations that talk about how much energy we need, how it's going to reduce our costs, but you're not showing the whole picture of what we're going to go through in the meantime. My next part of that, though, is the other night in Litchfield, you kept mentioning that you're going to bring this energy here. We have the highest energy costs, but at the same time, you told people that they couldn't find out when they would get natural gas because you only are transmission. So I'm not sure how you can tell people that we're going to get reduced energy costs if you are not the distributor. That's a big gap there. You're just transmitting it. Liberty Utilities can do whatever they want. So you're hoping that's what will happen, but we have no guarantees that that will happen. My final statement or question is, what do you mean by energy? Do you mean natural gas? Do you mean oil? Do you mean propane? Or do you mean all of it together? Because I have a hard time believing that California's prices are cheaper than ours here in New Hampshire. And when you say New England, where does New Hampshire fall in that? Are we just as expensive or less expensive than the rest of the region?
Let me address the first one about construction. That's a good point. There is disturbance during construction. There is short-term disturbance. As far as the way we do our construction and isolate the right-of-way, we keep people off, we work safely. But you're right, that's a good point, and we'll take that as far as showing what construction is, what blasting is, what we're doing in wetlands, what we're doing in residential construction. So it's a good point, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
And if I miss your question, I want to hit them all. So
I know, I threw them all in real fast.
Okay, so your second part of that, just remind me real quick.
Well, you were saying, you're just a transmission company.
Okay, yes.
You're not a distribution. So how can you say that we're going to get cheaper energy if you're not the one selling it to us ultimately?
Gotcha. So we have 500,000 decatherms a day of executed precedent agreements with LDCs, local distribution companies. First thing they got to do, in fact, Liberty Utilities has already done it. They take our agreement and they turn it into the New Hampshire PUC, the Public Utility Commission. And they say, we think this is the smartest move for us to serve our customers. They have to prove that. If they cannot prove that, the PUC won't approve the agreement. It's a big commitment. They have to demonstrate that this is the smartest move for them. They have no other better option. So what they have plans for, there are no guarantees, but what they have plans for, they're out trying to secure franchise rights. They're looking at areas along our pipeline. They purchased a gas propane facility over in Keene. They have expansion plans to serve portable pipeline facilities, refueling facilities, even for long-haul trucking. So they have plans. You're right. There's no guarantees when they're going to. We just came from the town of Pelham. They have plans to serve the town of Pelham. Those are their plans. You cannot distribute gas unless you have an interstate pipeline to serve it. I was born outside of Chicago in a suburb. There's 7 interstate pipelines serving one city. Here you have 5 interstate pipelines serving 6 states. Chicago's huge. It's huge. But you have to have infrastructure in order for LDCs to come in. In the northwest part of Massachusetts, there's no gas there. You're going to see gas there. You're going to see gas in southern New Hampshire. I can't tell you when. It's up to the LDCs to decide to come in. It may not even be Liberty Utilities. Unitil could secure a franchise. Anyone can come in and serve a town. It doesn't have to be the nearest utility. There's utilities all over New England that are all butted up against each other. National Grid, Berkshire Gas, Columbia Gas, Unitil. The state of Maine has several. I hopefully answered your question.
You did.
Thank you.
did. And I do already have natural gas, and I still don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say, before the next question, the cost estimates for existing residents are in the 50% reduction range because of this low-cost gas. For converting over to propane and fuel oil, I think it's like 60 and 70% reduction. And then finally, on electricity prices, they're estimating a 60% decline in energy prices. That could be 30, it could be 20. Projections are exactly what they are. They are projections based on the best available information. These companies have to demonstrate that their data is the best available information.
Thank you, Curtis. Wendy, I'm going to follow you with Bruce Bradshaw and Mike Brody.
Okay.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you. My name is Wendy Thomas, and I want to address, first of all, some photos you had in the presentation. I know that you guys want to make things look pretty. That's kind of your job. The photo specifically of the compressor station in Pelham, New Hampshire, that little cute gray building, it looks like a little shoebox there. You want to go back to that? Yeah, just adorable. If you can make that bigger.
Yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, I'm really big on tiny houses. Yeah, if you could, can you make that full screen? It's
Mark's
just
technology adverse. So.
Yeah, there we go. Well, if the light's
keep going,
right,
Wendy.
If the light's right, you can see it. That's a charming little photo, but it's a little disingenuous because it's actually the photo of a utility building, a very small utility building that is next to the compressor. I'm going to pass out some pictures that show what they call the compressor and what the compressor really is.
Well, it's part of the compressor station.
Wendy, if you can identify on these pictures where the compressor is.
Well, they're saying that top one right there.
Yeah.
They say it's the compressor in Pelham. It's not the compressor.
They're both part of the compressor
It's part
station.
of that. No, that is okay.
Wendy, wait a minute. Can one of you guys identify the compressor in these pictures?
The compressor's in this building. That's an auxiliary building.
All right, so the bottom left is the compressor building.
That's the compressor station, electric compressor. That's the auxiliary.
All right, go ahead, Wendy.
Okay. All right, so here's my question. That was a statement just to clarify, again, the adorable picture. 2 weeks ago, a 1-inch gas pipeline here in Merrimack was damaged and started to leak, and a shopping plaza, some streets, and a neighborhood had to be evacuated. It was an emergency by everyone's acknowledgement. My question is, how much area would need to be evacuated if a leak occurred in a 36-inch pipeline?
Well, should a leak or some sort of failure in a rare event on a pipeline occur, there's many circumstances that it would depend on. It would depend on the topography. It would depend on the pressure that's in the line at that time.
Give me an estimate.
It would depend. It would be inappropriate for me to give any kind of estimate on that distance. It may be misleading or misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Bruce?
I just have one comment before I ask my question. Me personally, I would rather pay the higher prices in exchange for the safety and environmental concerns for the town of Merrimack. Just one comment. So, can you describe alternate routes you considered through Merrimack that would avoid blasting through our nature preserves and putting over half of the town's drinking water at risk? And why didn't you choose one of those routes that you were looking at that didn't cause as much harm?
We're still working with we've got an exchange of maps with the Merrimack Village District, and we're looking at those areas at this point. We're still early in the stage as far as pre-filing. We've got our route on the map. We've not done any field surveys at this point. We're gathering more data, both through aerial and through consultations with the communities, with the associations, so we can gather more data and see what resources would be impacted and what construction techniques we can use through those resources. We've crossed through aquifers before. We've crossed near wells, different construction techniques. So we're still early in the phase to see if we can fit a route through those areas or through the process. We've looked at many alternatives since we started this project, some big, some small, and we'll continue to do that.
What's the estimate of when you guys would be able to publish or finish your work so that people have a better understanding?
Right now, we filed our first set of alignment sheets with our resource reports that were filed on March 13th. Mm-hmm. In June, we're going to file a second set, and our filing of our preferred route will be in later September this year. So we're working on that now. So later September is when, if we get the market, what market we get, the project may be sized 30-inch, maybe 36, because we can't get file without the market. And at that time, we're going to be, between now and then, be working on fine-tuning our route and trying to get survey permissions, get on the ground. We're doing some new aerial flights with some technology so we can work. We've got consultants working on our directional drill designs, and we're consulting with the different resource managers in the state and local to identify all these locations to help fine-tune that route. Now, as far as blasting, that is a process. We've done it before. It's a controlled blast. It's only so deep for the fracturing. But those are the things that would have to be evaluated.
Okay. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Mike, followed by Dan Bogdan.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Probably most of the people here are pretty concerned about safety, so maybe a couple of part question, but if you could just, I know you presented how you check the pipe and all the safety precautions you take, but maybe after the project's completed, what's done to monitor those lines, and then in the case that there is some sort of catastrophic event and there's a response that's needed by the town, is the town reimbursed for any of that? Or is that coming out of the pockets of the town? I know there's, you spoke about the tax revenue coming in, but if the town has to respond, whether it's a 1-inch line, 36-inch line, what would be the situation? And I guess maybe just to add on to that, what are the causes of some of those catastrophic events? I mean, I think we're looking to have our minds put at ease that that's not going to happen in our town. And are there some things that are just unavoidable?
There are different causes for events. Let me give you an example of an event on Tennessee Gas Pipeline in Ohio in 2011. We had a line. We had a failure at one of the welds. It was, if you know anything about Ohio, and there's a lot of landslides there. That line was there for like 40 years, but it was built in an area where there was some landslides. Those landslides put pressure on the line. The line moved. The line opened. There was some flames. There were no injuries. The emergency response worked properly. These lines were equipped with shutoff valves, so in an emergency, these valves shut off. We're going to design this pipeline with shutoff valves, either sensing or remotely controlled. The gas is isolated, and then the gas dissipates. So that would be in a catastrophic if the gas just dissipates. The emergency responders, the primary role on that is to come in and isolate the area, work with the people, isolate, evacuate, and then the gas company isolates the valve. So that's one example. There are myriad. They're there, but it's a very rare event. On a new pipeline, when you build it, it starts with the construction. I don't want to sell the safety, but you start with the construction process, the steel, and then once the line's in, you do have these safety systems in. And one of the things you have are the valves. Should you have an event, in a rare event, it shuts in, and you can isolate it and get the gas isolated and evacuate the area. Now the maintenance. Thank you, Jim. The maintenance program. One of the things, if you're in the areas, typically you're going to be doing an intelligent tool, or PIG we call, that launches in the line. And I think we're on a program now, would be in here for every 7 years, where you're actually going through and you're checking, should there be any damage? Should there be any wall loss through the corrosion? Should there be any damage if a third party gets into the pipe? There was a failure, it's publicized, in Edison, New Jersey, on a pipeline where a third party damaged the pipe, never reported it to the pipeline company, and then over the years, for some reason, that pipe failed at that point. But when you run these tools, you'll identify those things. The other thing is, this pipeline has, to prevent corrosion, when you put the line in, you want 100% coated, but you can't always have 100%. So you have a cathodic protection system that puts an electrical current on the line, so all these lines are cathodically protected so that you can maintain and keep any wall loss from the pipeline.
Okay. So just because I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. So in a situation that would come up, is the town responding first? And I guess the question is, again, would the town be reimbursed, and do we have the capacity to respond to something like that?
If the event's on us, the town, yes. The town would be reimbursed for that. Now, one of the things I want to go back on is the emergency response. What we do, it was in the slides, we work with the emergency responders, and all our towns that we operate in, the 12 in New Hampshire, all through the country, our operations folks work with the responders. You know where our valves are, you know where our pipelines are, you know what you do in an event, you know what we do. We as a company go through mock emergencies. Sometimes we do mock emergencies with the town. So a plan's clearly laid out with your pipelines here, here's your valves, something happens, these valves are going to shut, you're going to isolate, operations people are going to come, communicate, set up an incident command, things like that. Those are the type of things that...
But the town is responsible for sort of shouldering the burden of that training and sort of getting up to speed. Not doing the training, but it's time
the personnel,
and effort.
The time, but the company will work with the town, just like any other business in town of doing that.
I'm just worried about them being overburdened by something.
And I'll speak to that from personal. So I mentioned before, I have 2 pipelines in my town. I'm also a firefighter EMT in my town. So we have yearly trainings on incidents. So we do the same thing. We tour industrial buildings, manufacturers, any of that kind of stuff. You do local tours. So the pipeline company will come, whether it's Algonquin or Tennessee Gas, and will do trainings with us if something were to happen. They would explain, the process for responding, what you should be doing, who you should contact. Right in our radio room at headquarters, we have a list of contacts for both Tennessee Gas Pipeline and Algonquin Pipeline. So there's work that these pipeline companies do, ours included, to work with first responders to make sure that they're prepared. The equipment is the same. There's no difference. And if there's a fire chief here, like I saw in the back, or any firefighters here, they would know that that's the case.
Matt, thank you. Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, followed by George May and Frank Philly.
Yeah, about 45 years ago, they dug up behind my folks' house. They ran a transmission line back there. Fast forward 45 years, if you didn't see it go in, you have no idea it was even there, and no incidences. I've watched the town here grow. 30 years ago, you could water your grass anytime you want. Now we have water restrictions due to lack of appropriate water. I'm watching the gas bills and the electric bills for everybody going up, so I'm in favor of the pipeline. I'm in favor of the Northern Pass. We need the power. Not only does your homeowner's bill go up, but the towns and everything else that runs off the gas and electricity, that's all going to go up. So you do need the system, as far as I'm concerned. We fought back with Continental Boulevard, the extension going through to Pennachuck. There was pros and cons with that. Everybody uses it. People on Thornton's Ferry are happy now. The neighborhoods are nice and quiet. Same thing with Home Depot. There was an opposition against that. And the other projects we've had in town, it all turned out for the better. One question I have for you on this particular pipeline right now, you've got X amount of gas going through. Based on your best knowledge right now, how much of that gas is spoken for, and how much free space do you have on that line for the future expansion?
I'd like to give him another hour to speak. Right now we have 500 out of 1,200. So we have, if we did a 30-inch pipeline, 1.2 BCF a day, we've sold 0.5. We are still securing customers. Those are what they call anchor shipper customers. They're anchoring the project, and additional customers are coming on board. We anticipate a very healthy power generation market. I didn't talk a lot about power just yet, but you've added 24 gas-fired power plants to serve New England, but you haven't added pipeline capacity. So they're there. They're ready to run an all-new generation. In fact, there's 2 power generation developers that are trying to look at siting a power plant along this 345 kV line and our gas line to replace Vermont Yankee Nuclear Facility. In their eyes, they know that a wind farm takes 55,000 acres of land to replace Vermont Yankee Nuclear Facility. They think they can replace that facility with a gas-fired generation facility using our gas and jumping on Public Service New Hampshire power line. Those are things that people look at once you get an interstate pipeline, you have access to the grid. So we have space on our pipe right now of 700,000 on a 30-inch, and if we were to try to do a 36-inch, again, you got to have a market for it. If we don't have a market for it, we don't put in a 36-inch. That 700,000 we think is going to be spoken for. It's just going to take more time. The solution to serving the power grid to provide reliability is not an easy fix. It requires regulators. The state's got to weigh in. A whole host of people got to weigh in. We're very confident. We're talking to all the stakeholders, the electric distribution companies, the power generators. We think it's going to get fixed. We're very confident of that. We have space to serve those power generators.
The reason I ask that is because right now you're going to put in so much to last so far into the future, and I understand cost, et cetera. But this is where we come into the problems with our roads and everything else. We go out so far. And my thing is, while the hole's open, whether you go at 36, twin 24s or something like that, so we're not visiting this thing 30 years down the road and do it all over again. That was just a thought.
No, that's a very good thought. And the reason that we're looking at 36 inches is exactly that. We would be remiss, just like you say, we're opening up the ditch. It's pipeline 101. The difference between a 30 and 36-inch installation is not any significant issue. We're doing all the same techniques. So we are looking at it, and we file with FERC up to 36. But we've told FERC, we're in constant communication with them. We will let you know, we will file based on what we determine the market need is. It could be a 30, it could be a 36. We haven't made that decision. We won't make that decision until we file at the end of September.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. George, followed by Frank Philly and Eber Courier.
Thank you. My name is George May, and I represent the Sauhegan Watershed Association. And I'd just like to point out that once the pipeline comes into New Hampshire, you're entering the Sauhegan Watershed. And this is a river. The Sauhegan River is a protected river in the state of New Hampshire. And it requires major protection. You're going to be working all the way along it. You're going to be making I think, very complicated river crossing that on the map in Greenville. You're going to run down through Amherst, our neighbor here, and it shows crossing the river 4 times around Sauhegan High School, which seems insane to me. Then come into Merrimack, cross into the Horse Hill Nature Preserve, White Pine Swamp. All of this this is all part of the Sauhegan watershed. As you head to the east, you veer away from the Sauhegan and aim directly for the Merrimack, which is another protected river. All of these are going to require extreme caution, real caution all the way along. A question that I have is on compressor stations. My understanding is that there's to be a compressor station somewhere out to our west, New Ipswich or Mason area.
Yeah, New Ipswich is our primary sites now we're looking at.
And what I've heard is that compressor stations then are required every 40 miles in order to keep the pressure up or something.
Approximately every 40 miles. We've got one plant there, and then we've got one plant in Drake, nothing in between.
One of the other rumors that I've heard is that in the future, looking 20, 25 years ahead, compressor stations are going to be required probably every 20 miles.
Well, that's the way the system is. We could ask the question, can you guarantee there's never going to be a compressor station between New Ipswich and Drake? I can't.
What would be 20 miles from the last compressor station in New Ipswich? Would that be in Merrimack?
I don't know. I'd have to scale it off, but
it's a possibility.
Possibility, but that's if there ever was something like that, that would be a whole new siting process to site a compressor station. And we were in New Ipswich last night, and we got a lot of questions about the compressor station. But I can't sit here and say, in 20 or 30 years, when this pipeline's here, that there's not a need for more gas. And one of the ways to expand capacity on a pipeline is to put some compression in between. But that's very speculative.
On the valve stations also, question on crossing the river, on the Merrimack River or the crossings in Amherst and the Sauhegan River. Would there be valve stations on either side of the river?
Yeah, let's back up. On Amherst, we cross the Sauhegan 4 times, but we have 2 directional drills planned.
Right.
Kind of in a V. We haven't, the valve spacing in here is probably going to be about 8 miles apart. I know that was one of the questions from one of the written questions we had. Typically, we don't put a valve station on each side of the river. We stay with our normal valve spacing. So at this time, we don't have plans to put valves on either side of the rivers at these crossings. They're deep. As I showed, there could be 30, 40 feet deep. So there's not really needs to isolate those particular areas. They're not anymore, they're not subject to any kind of third-party damage at that depth or anything else.
George?
One other thought.
George? If it's quick.
Quick. You already have an existing line in Massachusetts. I know you've looked at that. I can tell you a lot of people in this room would be really pleased if you could go back to that route and follow the existing line.
Frank Philly? Is that Frank? Come on ahead. You need to come to the mic so that we can tape it. I got my question answered. Okay, thank you. Eber, are you here? Thank you.
While he's walking up, one of the benefits that this design does is it serves our other customers on our 200 line as well. If you ever take a look at the map, and I won't go back because I want this gentleman to have his question answered, we have facilities on our system. By tying into Drake-It, we're not only serving all of the customers in northern Mass, New Hampshire, but we fill back up. We increase the pressure that it's already lost when traveling that great distance, fills that 200 line back up, and we're increasing our deliveries all to customers in Massachusetts. It's a hydraulically the best solution to serve the most customers.
Thanks, Curtis. Go ahead, Eber.
Yeah, Eber Courier. I own a small farm here in Merrimack, apple farm, and I do some other vegetables. And the question I have is, within the 50-foot right-of-way, I own the property, but Kinder Morgan has the easement through the property. What is allowed to farm within that 50-foot easement that is maintained by tractors, bush hogs, and so forth on a yearly basis?
And Ebert, Jim Hartman, currently have we had the opportunity to visit with you and talk about survey permission?
No, what I'm talking about is an example of farms, and with an apple farm in particular, normally we have roots that go down 5 feet, and an apple tree itself will produce about 4 bushel of apples per year, and $40 per bushel. It's about $160 per year that we expect to get from that one apple tree. So my concern is for a fruit farmer or a vegetable farmer that's losing the property to do agricultural service, how much are we going to lose?
And that's a great question. And the reason that I asked first about the survey is because, as you've alluded, trees on top of the pipeline on top of the easement are a problem for us. So what we want to do is to try and align the pipeline that is in conjunction with some of your roads or along your property line so that we can minimize that future impact to your growth, to your livelihood. So that's why I asked. In general, other than the fruit crop that you have, haying activity, corn, agricultural activities are all allowed. The trees can be problematic. So, again, that's why our alignment can be modified to try to minimize based on your current rows and where your access roads are. And by creating a new access road where the pipeline goes, we're using two uses in one. Or by following your property line along the meadow, the edge of the fruit farm, we're again able to minimize that impact. So that's that interaction of the survey permission and how we can try to mitigate the damage to your livelihood.
Well, I know in some of the information that we have that the maintenance that you need to come in and you might use a herbicide to kill the grass, or you use a bush hog to do the mowing. It just seems kind of odd to me if I got a couple of trees within 10 feet of that pipeline or under the pipeline. Is it sustainable? Can you leave the trees there?
And again, part of the process through the easement acquisition is negotiation for those easement rights and damages that are paid for compensation for those easement rights. And in your case, with the crop, it takes on a little different flavor because you have an annual crop that has a planned life expectancy. I'm not sure if it's 20 years or 25 years before you start losing your production on your fruit trees. And the replanting of those trees has a certain growth and yield until they come back up to production. So the damages that we would discuss with you are really crop-based and are a little different than landowners' compensation for subdivisions where it's a little different. You would have a land and also a crop damage on your property.
Thank you. That was one of my questions.
Great.
Okay.
We've got David Batt, followed by Carolee Dalton and Penny Capsambellis. My apologies if I missed it. David? Okay.
Hello, thanks for educating us. Question, how many miles of natural gas pipeline are currently in your control or ownership?
70,000.
Yeah. Countrywide, 7,000. 77,000, okay. How many environmental impact incidents have you experienced in the last 10 years with those natural gas pipelines?
It's published on our web. There's several. There's environmental incidents.
So do you have a ratio of incidents per mile of pipeline or anything like that?
I don't have that stat in front of me. We do. There's like 35 measures that we're measured against our peers in environmental incidents, our pipeline incidents, OSHA safety, contractor OSHA safety. Our current posting in February, we're outperforming our peers 30 out of 35. One of those is the environmental incidents. It's based on 1,000 miles of pipeline ratio. I just don't have that sheet in front of me here.
Okay. Any EPA fines?
No, the FEMSA, the EPA. I don't know where there may be. I don't have, again, that data in front of me, but we can get it. And it is posted. Kinder Morgan's one company that posts that on our webpage.
Okay. Will any of the gas that may flow through Merrimack actually be utilized in Merrimack, or is it all going to go right through our town?
I believe right now, I know that Liberty Utilities in the FERC filing right now, we're looking at a interconnect with Liberty for their 116 a day in Amherst. But in discussions with Liberty, we are looking at potential sites in Merrimack to actually put a meter station. I know that's another facility that's not filed for, but you asked the question, if the gas is going to be in Merrimack, there's a chance in our discussions with Liberty. Again, we're early in the process. We've just filed our first set of full resource reports, and we're still working with the customers on location. So there's a chance, in fact, that Merrimack could have a meter station here.
Okay. Is it all going to be underground through Merrimack?
It will be all underground, but there may be a valve site. We haven't done those spacing. So if you fall in that 8 miles, because I believe this will be a Class 3 area or a high consequence area, they're 8 miles. So there's a chance there'll be a valve station above ground. It'll be in the right of way. We may have, instead of having it directly under the power lines, it may move over. It's about a 50 by 50 site, maybe a little smaller. If we put in what we're talking about now with remote control valves, we may have some outbuildings with some communication on it. So there could be above ground appurtenances, but the pipeline itself will be underground. There just may be some appurtenances that come above ground.
Okay. What happens when you encounter rare species, archaeological digs?
Well, that's one of the things we do our surveys on. We have to, the environmental permitting process with FERC and the environmental siting and other is very stringent on what we walk through. So we have to identify any threatened and endangered species, any cultural sites. We just had meetings with FERC and 10 of the Indian tribes in the Northeast United States in regards to cultural. So it's a big thing. What happens if you find it? There's different things you can do. There's avoidance. The easiest might be avoidance. Let's avoid that site. Let's avoid that plant. We've had projects where we've had threatened and endangered species. We've had to replant them, bring them back. We've had other things where you can't avoid, or you can't, then you might mitigate it and work out some kind of mitigation for that. Cultural, you could end up digging, if you have to go through there, you could be digging sites and be sifting through that site for, like you see on Indiana Jones type stuff. That's the kind of things you might have to do to mitigate that. So it's all part of the process.
Okay, one last question. You don't know your market size at this point, and you're trying to put a project in that's going to cost you millions of dollars?
Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars.
Billions.
Why don't you know your market size?
That's how this works. The process, we're getting out very early. We started early before we had any customers signed up. Building a pipeline, any infrastructure takes a long time and a lot of effort. We know 500,000, that is a huge number, and our customers have asked for it. We're still working on a number of fronts, including the state of Maine. We're heavily involved in the ECRC process. We're also working on the power generation market. We're very confident that the investment is the right thing to do. We will know what our...
It's profitable for you.
What's that?
The investment is profitable for you.
Yeah, if it's not profitable, no, we're not messing around here. If it's not going to make money for us, we're not in the charity business. Okay. That's right. So if we're not going to make money, I'll give you a hypothetical example. New Hampshire PUC says, Liberty Utilities, I don't know what you're thinking, this is a bad contract, and we lose $115,000. That's a big customer. That might drive us to be uneconomically viable, and we won't build the project. You need two things to build a pipeline. At least this is how we simplify it. You need market, and you need it to be permittable. When we file in the fall, if we don't have those two things, we won't file. When we file, we have not been denied by FERC. There's hundreds of projects we've never filed. We just canceled a huge project that we've been working on for 2 years, I think, out in the West. Very common. You propose projects, you build your market. If the market's not there, or if it's not permittable, we don't move forward.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Lee, followed by Penny, followed by Sharon Ripta.
Hi. I'll follow up on that. Are exports considered part of your market that you're going after?
We don't go after market. We're talking to everybody. So this is a very good question. Now, and I'll answer this in different ways so you understand. LNG export customers, there's potential projects that have been looking at exporting. Down East LNG off the state of Maine, been for 10 years looking at importing LNG. They're also now talking about exporting LNG. They have not moved forward with their project yet, so it's a potential project. We are an open access transporter regulated by FERC. Anybody comes to us and is willing to sign a 20-year agreement, long-term binding with credit, we are obligated to sell them capacity. We sell to the point of Drake-it. We also sell down in Massachusetts on our system. We don't have any LNG customers signed up on this project. In order to do that, you'd have to also go and sign up on the Maritimes or the Spectra pipeline to get it up to a proposed facility. We don't have any of those folks. That's just where we stand.
Okay. You talked about the shutoff valves being 8 miles apart. In Amherst, you also mentioned it could be up to 20 miles.
Could be up to 20, but in here I'm saying 8 to 15. The way it is, they talked about class locations. If it's a class 2, it's 15 miles. If it's a class 3, it's 8 miles. And just even though we haven't done our calculation, so it could be up to 15 miles apart. It likely not going to be 20 miles apart, not here because of the population density. So you're correct.
So you haven't determined yet the thickness of the pipelines for what class it's going to be?
Well, it's a function of if it's 36-inch pipe and we get the grade that's X70, we could calculate the wall thickness. But our engineering company, as the first gentleman asked, we're determining now what those class locations are, what the valve spacing is, and what the pipe wall thickness would be for those class locations. So come our June filing, we've got the 400 miles of pipeline to design. We'll have that information.
And that's based on population?
It's based on both, by code, it's based on the population and some other factors of where it is. Now, when you do a directional drill, you're going to put heavier wall pipe because you need it for the stresses. You need to make sure that your pipe can handle those bend stresses. When we do road crossings, typically at road crossings by code, you put heavier wall pipe on things. So it's not all population related.
What about ground shifting?
Well, the ground shifting, I know someone talked earlier about, maybe it was the other meeting, about earthquakes, but the ground shifting, for example, and we've gotten comments about frost. So when you dig the trench, whether you blast it or trench it, the trench is dug wider than the pipe. And then the pipe is padded all around the pipe to make sure, and I say by padding, it's a good backfill. It's not rock against the pipe. It's nice, clean backfill, and it's looser. That ditch is dug wider than the pipe. So should there be any kind of shifting at all, that pipe is actually flexible. If you saw on that directional drill, that pipe will move. So as far as ground shifting or whatever, we do geology to make sure we're not in areas. We've had areas where you're going to design around where maybe there's sloughs in geology. So the ground shifting's not an issue for the way the pipeline's built because it's not in there rigid into the ground.
We have had earthquakes. I've felt them here in
Absolutely.
Merrimack.
In fact, there's earthquakes everywhere. And it just varies. But unless what we do is if we're on a fault line, then we may do something even wider, like when you build on a fault line. We've done projects in Utah and other areas where there are fault lines, different areas. But for here, we will do geological studies, make sure we're not on fault lines. But the way we design the pipe, if you look at damages in the cause, you don't see anything from earthquakes because the way the pipe is able to move, unless it was right on a fault line like in California or something, and you don't have that geological structure here.
Thank you.
Penny, followed by Sharon and Don Miner. Penny Kapsimbilis. You're all set. Thank you. Oh, Perry. Thank you. Sharon.
I want to touch back on the compressor station again, because my understanding is that the pipeline is already open access, which means that it has to, by law, accept gas from drilling sites along its entire route. All right, so I don't see where you'd have to, once it goes through FERC, have to readdress if it was going to have a compressor station in Merrimack, where you'd have to have another site evaluation. If it's already open access, doesn't that mean that you just get to put another compressor station in?
No, the way this project's filed now, it's a complete filing, and it includes all the facilities that are on this map, all the way back to Pennsylvania. Should we, during this, there may be some changes between now and September when we file, okay? But and there's some changes, like I mentioned, there's some meter stations. We're making alignment adjustments. There's some things that'll change. But the basic premise of the project isn't going to change at that point. So we're going to determine what that customer base is and what that design is. And if we don't get the full customers, we may even put less horsepower at some of these stations. Once that timeline starts going, we're on a timeline customer base to get this pipeline in 2018. Once we change that filing and you put in a new facility, that's a different facility. That changes the whole project. So it'll either bring this project back to the slowest component, which might be that new compressor station, or that customer may have to wait. We build it, and then it's going to go through a whole separate process for a whole separate FERC filing, siting, everything. So even though it's open access, there's a time, and Curtis, don't disagree, that open's got to close for this project. We build it, and then for the next project, if it requires new facilities, we'd have to go file. There may be capacity here for some additional customers without adding the facilities. And that's why now we have the biggest footprint design, the 36-inch with the large compressor stations.
So to add in a smaller pipeline with another compressor station, you would afterwards would have to have a whole nother site evaluation,
Right.
another FERC
Right.
filing and everything.
Right. Or the other option is it could be added to this before September on the timeline. And it could even be added after, but it still goes through the process. You can't just kind of slip it in there and say, oh, this is part of it now.
And if there was another compressor station added that was close to Merrimack, we would have another meeting and everyone...
It'd be a whole new siting process and a whole new process. And one thing, and I think you guys know, FERC's scheduling scoping meetings in the next couple months. So they're going to have like 16 scoping meetings, I think.
Okay. So you said 2018 is when you would hope to finish the pipeline?
That's our planned in service, and we're looking at it, yes.
Okay. If that went through and that happened, how long do you think that the portion of the Marcellus Shale fracking would be projected to be piping through New Hampshire for? Like, how long would you be projected to...
You mean when it starts or when it finishes?
When it finishes.
We got...
How long do you think it would be profitable for?
Well, the interesting thing about our business, we transport gas. We don't drill it. We don't buy it. We don't sell it. We don't care what the price is. We only make money by selling space on our pipe. So the Marcellus is projected, it has a 100-year life. I've seen studies that said 75. I think anything over 20 in a field like that is a long time.
But the
it's a
whole
100-year life.
field, the whole entire field isn't going to be supplying the New Hampshire part of the pipeline. I mean, that would be a portion of the field is supplying the New Hampshire pipeline.
Yes, so Liberty Utilities, we don't tell them where they get their gas. How it works is they might say, I found a good package of gas down in Texas. Transport the gas up to Texas for me. We say, okay. We have customers every day. We don't care what the cost of gas is. We just care where you want it to take it in or inject it into our pipe and where you want to take it out. So it can come from anywhere.
Okay.
Sharon, I'm going to ask you to defer to the next person in line, and if you have more questions, come back at the end. You'll be able to ask them again.
Okay, can I ask one last question?
Quick.
Okay. If the pipeline's in for, say, 100 years, who plans on taking it out when it's done?
FERC has an abandonment process. This is a 7C filing. FERC has a process for 7B. As a company, you'd have to file with FERC to discontinue service because you have the right, you have to provide that service. So you'd file to discontinue service. Then you'd also have to file to abandon use of that pipeline. So there would be another process, and that abandonment may be you just empty the gas, you fill it with inert, and you leave it in the ground, which would be less environmental. It may require you to take that pipeline out. So there is a FERC process for the abandonment process.
Thank you, Mark. Don, are you? Yep. Followed by Bruno Walzis and Jill Manfield.
How you doing? Donald Miner here. I live at 82 Peasley Road. I am an abutter. I'm not happy. I own a farm, as Eber does. I don't have fruit. I have livestock. Okay. For the last 2 years, I've been negotiating with Public Service before they became Eversource in utilizing their privately owned property underneath the power lines to graze animals. I mentioned 2 years. That's a lot of time walking about fence. Now, this is kind of getting a little monkey wrench into that at this point in time with your proposed pipeline. So when you guys go to stage, I'll have to remove the fence, which is going to cost me money. Okay, so I planned according like you guys would do, and I beefed up my inventory to handle this, to put in this space. Now, at this point in time, I have to hold off on it because you guys want to come in through. My well is about 30 feet off the property line. You're saying you're going to blast shallow. My well's 400 feet deep. It's going to affect that, my septic system. I also have an in-ground swimming pool. So a shallow blast is going to affect all this. I own an excavator. I can't dig further than 3 feet anywhere in my yard. It's ledge, okay, which I'm sure you guys already know. I have legitimate concerns. I go to farmers markets. I have a lot of customers even in this audience right here. They depend on my supply of meat for being fresh. Anyway, as an abutter, I've not seen any maps produced by your company to show the potential impact radius, okay, impact zone, whatever you guys want to call it, as described by the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 192.905C. How far does a home have to be from the pipeline to be considered safe if there was an explosion?
Don, I'm going to talk a little bit about your first part on the fencing and use of the land. And we're going to work with you for that fencing. It's going to be our responsibility as part of our construction. So you go ahead and do what you need to do now in today's world with Eversource or whatever. When and if the pipeline is constructed, we'll work with you to adjust whatever fencing to make sure that your livestock is still functioning, not being impacted by our construction activities. And it'll be our responsibility for the relocation of those fences to get them to meet your needs for your livestock. That's going to be part of the negotiation that we're going to
So you got to move my fence?
Yeah. That'll be part of it.
Where do my animals go in the meantime?
Well, and that will be the discussion because I don't know your property well enough, and that's one of the processes that we're going to learn to work with you, that process. So we're going to have to figure out where your livestock's going to be. We'll have to talk to you and figure that out, and that will happen. With regards to your well and your septic and your pool, those are absolutely legitimate concerns, and they're legitimate concerns for us as well. I'm hopeful that we've asked you for survey. You may have denied it, but one of the processes that helps us identify your issues is getting onto the property. This is good exchange because we at least know, that your well is there and your pool. But by getting onto the property, talking to you, identifying the concerns, we have the ability to minimize, whether it's by routing, whether it's by construction technique. We also have the ability to educate you so you know specifically some of the issues that are happening.
All right. Well, you had your representative, I can't remember her name, sorry if she's here, stop by, Patty, I believe her name was, to ask for a survey. She
Sure.
showed up on a Friday. The following Thursday, there was some survey guys in my yard, in my snowbanks. They were supposed to be in Amherst. I live, I don't know, I'll just say a mile away from Amherst.
Sure.
So your survey guys were way off. They even had to cross the Sauhegan River. So I've got some big concerns with the ineptness of the guys that you hire. Excuse my word for that.
No, that's
and maybe
fine.
you should change survey guys because they were way off.
The activities that the surveyors were doing at that time were working within the road right-of-way. And
Why were they in my front yard?
Don, let him finish.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have been in your front yard. And if they were, I apologize, because that's not supposed to be happening. So I apologize for that. But we don't have permission to be on your property. We shouldn't be on your property. And I promise that won't happen again. So I apologize.
I've denied service at this point.
And that's fine. And that's
because
fine.
of that.
One of the information exchanges that is helpful for us is to let you know what we can do as part of our construction design to minimize the impact to your property. And if at some point, as we go through the process, if you reconsider survey, I hope that you will. And I give you my promise that we'll do everything right for you.
Don, quick follow-up.
Well, there's another part of that
yeah,
question.
Lynn, can I answer the
Sure, go
safety
ahead,
question? It might take me a minute, but let me answer it.
Go ahead.
First off, you asked how close is safe. And by the pipeline industry in Kinder Morgan, we believe that the pipelines are safe, your home's safe, next to the pipeline. Now, we don't build that close, 25, 50 feet, so we're not going to say a distance. But the way the code is designed, and we talked about class locations, valve spacing, integrity management programs, we feel that all the homes that will be and businesses next to our pipeline will be that the pipeline will be safe. You mentioned, I think, the potential impact radius, and like I said earlier, I really don't, that would depend on where it is, what type of incident, where the incident was,
All right.
how it went, and I'm not going to give a figure because it could be misunderstood or misleading, but I will tell you the potential impact radius became part of the code for the DOT because they wanted to identify high consequence areas. They used to just go class 1 based on population density in a running mile, class 2, class 3. They introduced the high consequence area to identify the PIR, so in that area, if there's 20 homes or in that area there's a large gathering place, a church, a nursing home, a hospital, a school, in that home, that high consequence area becomes a class 3 pipe, and it has more stringent integrity management programs as far as how often you pig the line, how you monitor it. So it was brought in to identify areas so that the pipeline can be designed and maintained more safely.
Well, I'm in a low consequence area, so does that mean I got a lesser pipe in my area?
No, all the pipe is it's just based on risk, but all the pipe is quality pipe. It's not less safe.
Well,
Don?
I'm trying to go easy.
I know. I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Well, at what point in time am I going to know, as an abutter, what this high consequence area? Because I'm reading a lot of information into this. The slaughterhouse I use is in Athol, Mass, so I've been brought up to speed by those folks down there as well. We're seeing 900 feet, which goes to Bates Road, which is 3 houses. One of my other neighbors is here as well, and she's concerned because she's right across the street from me. So it sounds like we're probably going to get a class 1 pipe,
Well, I'm not saying it. It's
Well,
just
you're not going to say, but that's fine.
It's just inappropriate for me to give
But
that answer here.
There's a human element here as far as welding is concerned, okay? It's like I won't buy a car was manufactured on a Monday or a Friday, okay? So if the welding happens on those days, it can happen. You guys own a pipeline in West Virginia that did blow up, and it was only in service for 1 year. So I didn't hear you talking about that.
All right, Don,
But I'll come back.
thank you. Bruno, followed by Jill Manfield and Donna Worcester. Go ahead, Bruno.
Thank you for your time. Maybe just first, I want to make a quick statement. Rather than talking about how to expand the infrastructure for fossil fuels, it may be better if we'd be talking here how to expand the infrastructure for alternative energies or reduce energy use. My question kind of follows up to the person that was just talking earlier. We are also in a border, and there's no church nearby, no retirement home. If there is a catastrophic event, like an explosion, and our homes are impacted, who's responsible for that? Is there Kinder Morgan, do you have a liability in that event?
If the event was a result of our operation and maintenance, yes, we would be liable, and it would be our responsibility. The question arises, of course, and Mark mentioned it earlier, if it's a potential third party. And third-party activities are one of the leading causes of incidents with natural gas pipelines. And let me explain. Someone may think that they know where the pipeline is, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a homeowner, and let's say they're putting in a drain line, and they may even be using a shovel. And let's say that they don't realize that they hit the pipe, and they damage the coating. With a shovel, you could damage the coating. With a backhoe, you could put a gouge in it. And what happens over time, it's right at that point, they bury it. They say, oh, they won't know. The problem is that over the next 5 years or 6 years, the pipe could have started to corrode, or with a gouge, as the pressure changes, the pipe can move like a coat hanger, and you stress it so many times, and it breaks. So that's why we have what's called a damage prevention team. And that's why 811, call before you dig, is so important. So again, you may think that everything's fine, but that's one of the leading causes. So we have a damage prevention team that every time that you call 811 and you're working within 25 feet of the pipeline, they are there the entire time. They're not eating a sandwich. They're not talking on their phone. They're there the entire time making sure that that pipeline is safe.
Well, I realize that the pipeline is pretty safe, but of course, if you live next to it and something should happen, and of course, at the end, it doesn't matter to us if we're impacted, whether that's your fault or someone else's fault, If our house burns down, we would like to have someone take care of it. And of course, if it's a small little construction company that maybe have caused the damage, who knows? They may not be capable of paying the damage. So then who pays?
We would probably be included in it, and there would probably be an insurance issue. So I couldn't say at that point. That would probably be at a different court, a different environment to decide.
Okay. One last question.
One follow-up, yep.
You mentioned earlier, and maybe I'd just like you to repeat it, what do you expect the electricity rates to drop if this pipeline goes in?
Kinder Morgan and Tennessee Gas Pipeline, we don't get into the forecasting business, but I've seen studies that electricity rates in this region could drop 55% based on the studies that have been performed. We personally don't do studies.
Have you ever seen that anywhere where you put in a pipeline that electricity bills drop by 50% afterwards?
Yes, absolutely.
Where was that?
We have, well, no.
Give them a
absolutely
chance.
It does happen. In fact, I have a whole, they tease me because I like to talk a lot, but I have a whole slew of slides I'd like to show folks. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to do it. Bottom line is, anytime you add infrastructure, prices drop. It's like a big city when you only have one gas station, you got a row of cars, they can charge whatever they want to charge. You add 2 more gas stations, gets competitive. Anytime you add infrastructure, prices drop. Every study that's out there, even the ones that hate fossil fuels and they want to put in wind farms, will admit that. And these studies they're publicly available.
Curtis, explain the gas trading and the prices. That's a great analogy.
No, we're gonna stick with just the question we went through. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jill, followed by Donna, and then Joanne.
Hi, my name is Jill Manfield. I live on 44 Whittier. My property abuts. I have safety concerns. You were talking about it being odorized. And so where is the odorant added, and who monitors that?
The odorant's added in, we're going to have an odorization station in New York State. And then we'll have, I don't know if we'll have monitors or not at the compressor stations, but at the metering, we have to deliver it, we'll have to put the odorant in and make sure it has a certain odorization when it comes to our take stations, to our customers. And then typically the LDCs, they add odorant, a little more odorant at that time, but it's odorized all across the state.
Okay, so you say it's in New York, though.
Yes.
So how are we able to detect if that's good or
Well,
bad?
I don't want you to detect it because if there's a leak, you'll smell it. But,
but how?
I mean, it'll be disclosed. I mean, it's something as we go through this process. We're not hiding anything about it being odorized and what we're going to do. But when that odorant's added, and it stays with it. It stays with it, the gas. So I can just tell you the gas that's going up the Concord line now into Concord, New Hampshire, that comes across the state and goes even further than where this pipeline goes is odorized.
So it has a life expectancy for a certain period.
For a certain period on the odorization, but it's continually dropping that odor in. There's going to be an odorization station, and it continually drops that odor in.
Thank you. Donna? Thank you. Joanne Schuttinger?
She has a comment, she said.
Okay. Tom Kolb? Well, come on up. You're Donna, right? Okay.
I honestly believe, or don't believe for one moment, that the people of Merrimack will save one dime after this pipeline goes through. Thank you. I was around, as many more people were here, when they did the Seabrook nuclear power plant. And I can remember the false promises of how much money we would all save in electricity when that power plant was built. Well, are we paying less? We are paying more than ever. So I don't want to think that this pipeline is going to save me 50% of my electricity. That'll never happen. Prices are always going up. Now, will it help? Will it produce more? We'll have more gas? Great. But it's not going to save us any money. That's my only comment, because the other questions were already asked.
Thank you, Donna. All right, Joanne, you're all set. We're going to go to Tom, followed by Charles Shepard and Doug Shabest. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of living in Merrimack almost 35 years, and we've had natural gas heat, underground utilities in our neighborhood, and it's all been wonderful. I've got a couple of short technical questions to start. What's typical pressure in the pipe?
It's going to be designed for 1,460 pounds. I don't know if the operation, but that's the maximum operating pressure, allowable operating pressure for the design.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yes, that's an important fact.
Yeah, all right. And do most of your pipes have similar pressures around the country?
Actually, there are some elsewhere, but not in the Northeast. This is higher pressure. We have our line that runs across Pennsylvania, where we start. In this area is an 1,170-pound system. This system is a 750-pound system.
Oh, it's all relative. And what's a typical coverage over the top of the pipe?
Yeah, it is buried. The standard is 3 feet minimum. There are areas, ag areas, roads that it's deeper. We typically try to get it deeper, but it's 3 feet is the minimum cover.
Yeah, I'm sure that varies as you go up and down topography.
Streams, rivers, those will be deeper.
Yes, certainly. And, okay, the contracts people are signing up for in advance, those are 20-year contracts to move gas?
Yes, and they typically always have rollover rights.
Yeah. So I am sure they believe they're going to make a profit for a long time, because if they can get the gas here a little cheaper than it's been, people will buy from them. So I can't believe that all those companies who are in the process of selling gas do not fully believe they will be selling at a lower price, and therefore consumers are likely to benefit. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Charles, followed by Doug, and then Eric.
Good evening. Slide 33 of your presentation states that the Tennessee Gas Pipeline has been operating safely in the northeastern U.S. for over 50 years. However, it makes no mention that from 2006 to 2014, the pipeline has had 92 significant incidents with its pipeline systems, resulting in $88 million in property damage. You did speak to one incident in Ohio earlier this evening. However, does Kinder Morgan believe that all the safety incidents occurring outside the northeastern U.S. are irrelevant to the safety of this project? And if not, why does your presentation make no specific mention of these incidents and the specific corrective actions that will be taken on this project to address those?
Can you repeat the statistics again from the years and the
2006 to 2014, the Tennessee Gas Pipeline, 92 significant incidents, $88 million in property damage, and 19 federal enforcement actions. So
it's transparent. I can't dispute your numbers because I don't have it in front of me. The $88 million seems off.
It's directly off the Department of Transportation website.
Okay, so the incidents, some of these incidents are like if a relief valve blows, you have to report it. So there's a variance of the incidents. One thing, we strive for safety. I said in 30 of 35 of the measures, we outperform our peers. We always work to get better. And one thing Kinder Morgan does is we do disclose those figures. They're public. They're accessible through our webpage, and they're accessible through PHMSA. So we do publish those. We're not trying to say there aren't incidents. We've had a good operating history here, and we've had good operating history everywhere. We just hadn't. But it is all published on the webpage and accessible.
Yeah, as you've heard this evening, a lot of the residents, especially the abutters, are concerned, especially concerned about safety. And I'm not an abutter, but as a resident, I'd like to see specific, concrete, anecdotal examples of a corporate culture that goes above and beyond regulatory compliance. And that might help when we didn't get to go through all your slides. Thank you for that. But including that information could be helpful.
Okay.
That's a very good idea. We've been talking about doing just that, so we thank you for that.
I had one other question. Other than the yearly tax revenue, how would Kinder Morgan compensate taxpayers for public land that's taken for the right-of-way for the project, specifically with land within the Horse Hill Nature Preserve?
The negotiations for any private or public entity is paid to that owner. So the public entity would depend upon who had control, whether it's the state, the town, a charitable organization, and through that determination of control of the property is who would be compensated.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Doug Whitbest, followed by Eric Pospischel, and it looks like Jerry Fortier.
Hello again. I recognize
We should be on a
you.
first-name basis.
Yeah, we should.
We
be.
should.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
These gentlemen want to build a pipeline through my hometown of Mason. I would like to point out we missed an opportunity to address a comment from our union friends when they appeared in Mason. And the discussion did come up here about jobs and local, hiring local firms. It would seem that there would be local surveying companies available in this area, and so we wouldn't have them wandering around not knowing where they were
Doug,
going.
can I ask you to address me, please?
The question?
Yes.
All right, we'll jump topics here a bit. In order to, you say in order to provide this cheap gas, you need customers and you need infrastructure. You also need supply. The industry likes to use the figure of Marcellus shales having a 100-year lifespan, but many studies have been done using Department of Energy information saying that that is highly optimistic. There are figures which say that if all these pipelines coming up through the Northeast are opened up, you can exhaust the Marcellus shale in 7 years. More typical figures run 10, 15, or 20 years. So by the time this pipeline is built, how long can we expect it to stay in service?
Thank you very much. And as I told you last night, the beauty of our system is you don't have to get your gas from Marcellus. You don't have to get it from the Utica. You don't have to get it from the Barnett Shale. We like to consider ourselves as blessed with good genes. We run, fortunately, through some of the largest shale plays in all of North America. We have a network. We tie into other pipelines. That's the natural gas system. Transporting natural gas is the safest form of transporting energy by far. Nothing else compares with it. It's a network of system. It's not just our pipe. Other pipes connect into us. In fact, right now, we serve the majority of Algonquin gas comes from us. We serve them 1 BCF of gas a day in the winter. That's how we work together to increase reliability. So if Marcellus ran out in 2 years, doesn't matter. You have our network of pipelines to get your gas from.
But the Marcellus is your highest yield.
We don't, again, like I told you last night, we're not in the drilling. We don't care how long Marcellus lasts. We only respond to selling transportation capacity to our customers. They're making the decision. They're looking at their own studies that estimate it with the EIA of 7,500 years. That's their call.
Thanks, Curtis.
Okay. Thank you.
Eric, are you here? Yeah, thank you. Followed by Jody Valancourt. You're still here? Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Eric.
Is Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company, LLC, the legal entity that will be responsible for the safe operation of the pipeline?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What's the net value of that company?
I'm sorry, I don't have that with me this evening. I can
Okay, so-
certainly find it and get back to you. Certainly it's public.
Okay, yeah, I'm asking because I want to know that it has the money to pay in case there are damages, that if there's some catastrophic incident, it won't just say, well, we're bankrupt and that's it.
Well, our capital enterprise value is a $110 billion enterprise value.
Okay. I also have a question about liability in the case that a third party damages the pipeline. Is the pipeline operator responsible for detecting that, assuming there's a period of time over which the damage grows or whatever? Are they legally responsible for detecting that and abating it before there's an incident? Or if an incident occurs, do you say, oh, well, a third party caused it, we don't have to pay for that?
There are so many variables involved, and any hypothetical could be discussed. It would be so hard for us to say. What's important to know is that if it's our responsibility, we're absolutely going to be liable for it.
Okay.
But with so many different scenarios of what can happen, I couldn't say honestly what would happen at the end of the day.
Let me make it a little more specific. Maybe you can give us a little more specific of an answer. If somebody damages the pipeline and the that damage is growing for one reason or another, and it's something that could have been detected, are you responsible for detecting it and doing something about it?
Yeah, and that's where it gets gray. It would depend how long it was there, what damage was done, how it was actually conducted, how the damage occurred. What I would like to say that if you're a landowner and you enter into an agreement with us across the property, we will put in writing that will hold you harmless, that we're responsible for the actions of the operation and maintenance of the pipeline. So we will put that into a document for you.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And while she's walking up,
Curtis?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Jody, go ahead.
You guys like her.
Yes, we do like her.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm Jody Valancourt. This proposed path currently does not run through my backyard, so there's a disclaimer there. However, the path that is currently proposed will be running through the aquifer where I get my drinking water from. It will be running through Horse Hill Nature Preserve, which was purchased with my tax dollars for preservation purposes. So I think I do have a vested interest in this. And from what I'm hearing tonight, this route could change dramatically. So it could be in my backyard before this is all said and done, because I do live on the southern end of town. But currently it's going through the backyard of several of my friends and neighbors. So I think two of my biggest concerns are trying to nail down a timeline for this. You know, we're all trying here in town to understand the FERC process, which, you know, I'm not an attorney, and I think sometimes you have to be an attorney to understand a lot of what's going on here. But the timeline, nailing down, you know, what the process is, when your deadlines are, I find information's very vague, and that's concerning to me. So I understand that Don Miner also hit on a point, because what I'm talking about is the maps that you have put out showing the proposed current path, which I understand may change. And I'm also concerned because the potential impact radius, which I think you agreed to tonight, is 1,902 feet based on a 36-inch pipeline. Is that correct?
We never gave out a number. It would just be inappropriate. It depends on, we did not give out a number.
All right, so you didn't agree to the Code of Federal Regulations that that's the appropriate number for a 36-inch pipeline with the pressurization that you're proposing?
We did not give out a number.
Okay, so you're not agreeing to that. You won't publicly agree to that. Okay, so is that the reason why the potential, and it's called the potential impact radius, or a lot of people here call it the incineration zone. Is there a reason why that zone is not listed specifically on your maps with the current proposed pipeline?
There's no reason to do that. It's like a lot of the code. I mean, we've got Class 1, we've got Class 2 pipes and code. There are the design parameters that are listed in one of the resource reports of the FERC filing. It's all public as far as where you're getting it, so you know where that is. And we're going through our design, and our design, DOT oversees our design and PHMSA, so we're going to have to design this pipeline and operate it according to those specifications. So we still haven't identified the design, the valve locations, the classes I talked about. We're still working on that. So the timeline, by the time we file in June, the second resource report, we'll have the preliminary identified, and then we'll file in September on that.
Where does it show the June? Where is that?
That's ours. What it is we're in the pre-filing process. We're saying June.
I'm aware of that.
We're saying June, and we said June in our filing letter that we would have a second draft of the resource report. It's an agreement with us and FERC because it's a pre-filing process. We work with FERC on the timeline. That's what we'd like to do. So we set it in the timeline. We just don't have it here.
So are you currently planning to file your application in September of 2015?
Fourth quarter, late September, early
October. So there's a possibility that this proposed route could change before then. And if it does change before then, how long will we have before September 2015 to know what the current route is so that potential neighborhoods that aren't in the pathway right now would be made aware of the fact that this pipeline is now going to personally affect them?
Yeah, any changes, the people will be notified of those changes when we make those changes through mailings and contacts There is a process to notify new owners. And then I don't, you know, FERC's got the scoping meters, whether we have to have new scoping meetings or not.
So are you going to publish a proposed path change, a map? Will you be publishing a different map than what we have right now?
Each time there'll be a little different map, and we'll have the landowners identified, and they'll be notified. Anybody that's in as part of the pipeline will be notified in advance of the filing.
I know several neighborhoods, people that were not notified prior to this. So whatever that system is that you used for this first path didn't work. There were people, especially in the Whittier neighborhood, that were not notified of this ahead of time. So I'm just trying to find other ways, in addition to relying on your notification process. So I want to caution people that if you think this isn't going through your backyard, it might be. And for purposes that the incineration zone won't be published on their map, you've got about 2,000 feet either way. So for those of you who have the map now, take a look and see if your house is in that zone. Thank you very much for answering my questions. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
I still have quite a few people who have expressed an interest in speaking. I'm going to ask you to be brief and not repeat anything that's been said before, but I do think this is important information to get out. Next on my list is Christy Bradshaw, followed by Janine Notter.
Good evening. Good timing. I'm going to go off of something that Jody just talked about, and I'm sorry, gentlemen in the dark blue shirt, you spoke about your system for notifying affected landowners. Could you go to slide 35 on your presentation, please?
Christy, talk while they're doing that.
Sure. Slide 35 on your presentation talks about 61 affected landowners in Merrimack. Could you please first define for me what you consider affected landowners?
I can certainly help you with that. And we are investigating a survey corridor that's 400 feet wide. And any property that is contacted, overlaid that 400 feet are the landowners that comprise that 72 or 73, whatever.
61 is what you actually have in all your documentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you're saying anyone that touches the pipeline, their land. I'm in the Whittier neighborhood. We have 61 homes that own a common piece of land. We are all 64 owners of that land. Less than a dozen people in our neighborhood have been notified at this point. So at what point in the process will Kinder Morgan come and knock on our door and start talking to us about what is happening with our land?
We're very familiar with the Whittier Place title. It's an unusual piece of property, the way that it's held.
It's not. It's very common for cluster developments to have that.
Christy, let him answer.
So we've been in the process of identifying all of the landowners and updating our records. Part of this process of the pre-filing is developing that list, determining title, determining ownership. We've been running title concurrently, so we are developing that. Those owners will be contacted. I absolutely know they were, so that will happen.
I will look forward to Patty's visit then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Janine? She's all set. All right. Ruth Burns, followed by Amanda Yonkin and Tom Wilder. Ruth? No, Ruth. I'm sorry, Beth Burns. Sorry.
It's all right. Ruth isn't a bad name. I have a lot to say, and I know I only have a few minutes, so I'll keep it as brief as I can. What I, like anybody else, if you have a house, and I know it might be a little bit to ask for, but put yourselves in our shoes for a second. We didn't buy a house just for a place to live. This is our way of life. We have kids that we're raising in our homes. We have to work hard and honestly. We have to work in an honest manner all around to support ourselves in our homes. The couriers, who I respect enormously, I have been taking my kids there to get apples since they were toddlers. Okay, they're teenagers now, and we still love them to death and still go there and pick their apples and everything else, okay? You're going to be taking part of their life away from them with this. This pipeline is transportation, it's not distribution. It's not going to give us any gas. It's not going to make our bills go down. I mean, you contradict yourselves. You've said more than you say on here, and you've said out loud that you're committed to the safety. You're committed. You've said, I have a list of 20 accidents, I can't even name all of them, that have happened since 2003. 2004, you were quoted as saying, you've learned from this. You're going to work on making better inspections of things, work on the safety more. The last number of accidents I have are from 2013. It's 2015 now. Over 11 years have gone by, and you've had 20 accidents that I listed here. This is with a 30-inch, 26-inch diameter natural gas pipeline. You're proposing a 36-inch. I have the accident you noted that happened in Ohio, okay? I have ones that have been fatal. 3 people were killed in one of them. 50 homes have been evacuated. Places have burned. There's been explosions. I mean, it's gone on and on and on for years now. This isn't a company you just started last year and you're still learning things. This has been going on for a long time. The accidents still keep happening over and over and over again. These are our homes. We're human beings, okay? And we deserve, more honesty out of this. I'm just hearing one contradicting comment after the next. I really am. And I can't look at all this and read all the studies and all the other meetings that there's record of. And there's just no way I see this pipeline beautifying or benefiting the town of Merrimack at all.
Hi, my name is Amanda Yonkin. Excuse me. I have a question about the standard easements that you're looking for people to give you. In particular, if this pipeline were to go through, is there the possibility of expansions of infrastructure, like more pipes in the same right-of-way?
No, there wouldn't be. That would be part of the negotiation process.
Okay, what about allowing the sale of the pipeline to another company?
Whether it's signable or not, again,
Yes.
that's a part of the agreement that we would negotiate.
So typically, is that a part of it that people...
There's language in there about assignable, but a lot of it is geared towards our successors so that our company could change. For instance, we previously were owned by El Paso Energy, and now we're owned by Kinder Morgan, as compared to selling it to a completely different entity.
Well, that's the last part of my question. Would it be restricted in the future to only be natural gas, or could it switch what would be going through?
It could be, and again, that's part of the negotiation.
It could be switched from natural gas?
No, it could be limited to natural gas.
It could be limited, but
Yep.
it could not be limited. Is that true?
Again, as part of the negotiation, we could limit it with you to natural gas if that's what you wanted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom? Thank you. Carol DePiro? Followed by Kim, I think Dinsmore?
Gentlemen, good evening. I realize I don't have much time, and I had a whole list of questions. I came here to try and understand this better. I'm finding myself walking away with more questions. I thought this was already planned, but it sounds like it's not figured out at all. But what I'd like to know is, why was this pipeline moved out of Massachusetts? What happened that pushed it up to New Hampshire? Why are we dealing with this now? Why did you avoid that question during your slides?
Well, when we went through the process of the initial, when we pre-filed back in the fall in September, part of that pre-filing is we looked at alternatives. We looked at several alternatives. If I can get the map back, and one of the alternatives we started looking at was realizing is co-location, staying near power lines. When we went across both northern Mass and western Mass in New York, we weren't close near power lines. So when we started evaluating the alternatives, as part of our analysis, we made a change here near the Pittsfield area to follow a power line in New York. And then here, instead of coming across through Greenfield.
So you didn't get resistance from Massachusetts? It's all about the power lines?
As far as permitting, one of the premises is to follow existing corridors. We looked at following our existing line in Massachusetts. And this is all in Resource Report 10 of the FERC filing. We've looked at Route 2 in Massachusetts. We looked at the Turnpike. We looked at other power lines in Massachusetts and all the impact tables. And then we looked at this route. It also helped us serve some of the market in New Hampshire. So that was the decision. When we looked at it, this turned out to be a better route than the first route we had. And now we've got this as the preferred route at this point during the process.
I'm sorry. With all respect, I don't believe you. I know people in Massachusetts who fought this pipeline.
Thank you, Carol.
And just to follow up, we still are in more towns in Massachusetts than New Hampshire. So it's not like we just abandoned Massachusetts for New Hampshire. I just want to clear that up.
Kim, can you speak for Mike as well, so we can give a couple of other people a chance?
Yep, I'll be very quick.
Thank you.
The map you handed out here today is dated November of 2014. And as I look along the route, I can see the Whittier neighborhood, I can see what we commonly call the Trees neighborhood, and I can see where the Merrimack Premium Outlet Mall is being constructed on this map. Yet when I look at your map that was issued for FERC of March of 2015, the outlet mall is nowhere on here. It's completely undeveloped land. So my question to you is, given even a potential 1,000-foot incineration zone, why would you submit plans to FERC that clearly omit areas of high consequence and safety?
And that's a very fair question. We did not go into, if you look on Google Earth tells you what's there. Our engineering, we know what's out there. We did not get the maps from Google Earth. We're flying this line to get updated aerial photography, and we will overlay that aerial photography on our final mapping. During our design, our engineering company, we've got information and we know what's out there, what the growth is. It's just not represented on that mapping.
Yet this map at least shows the construction, but what you submitted to the federal agency clearly does not. I don't find that to be compatible at all.
It's a fair question. And that's
Thank you, Kim. Julie? Julie here? How about Philip Morano? Followed by Robert Redsman. And we're quickly running out of time, just so you recognize.
Sure, thank you. So, hi, I'm Phil Morano. All politics are local, as you probably know. I've looked around the room and I've seen that 1/3 of the people are wearing buttons, no pipeline. We know where they stand, which leaves 2/3 for interpretation. And this could be anything from undeclared, don't know, don't care, ignorant, to they're for it. And we know that the American Revolution was 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. So, esteemed guests, you clearly are, you're erudites and replete with intellect and wisdom, and ostensibly learned in the skill of etymology, of argumentation, and apologetics. And I'm just an intellectual troglodyte. So please, my question is simple. And for the interest of the epistemology of truth and trust, exercise the same enthusiasm, passion, justification, and knowledge of why would you not want the pipeline or oppose the pipeline to go through your property, your wetlands, your rural character. Keep it in mind, fiscal responsibility, infrastructure, and event response through our quaint town, neighborhoods, families, and residents of Merrimack. And please speak as a Merrimack resident so that we can be on the same wavelength.
Sounds like a rhetorical question, but I'm going to...
No, I want to see how much. I want to see how much investment they have put in the people
Phil.
of
Just
Merrimack.
Give them a chance here.
I don't know if I understand the question there, to be honest.
I believe the question is, if you were living in Merrimack, how would you feel about this?
Again, my point's pretty clear. Me as an individual, I have pipeline in my town. I would support it as an individual. But this question is asking us personally. So we're trying to answer specific questions about the pipeline project. I understand what you're trying to do. I totally get it. It was a well-written speech. But let's stick to questions that we can specifically answer.
I'll answer that question. When I lived in Iowa, I actually had a pipeline running through my property. I worked for the pipeline, natural gas pipeline. That's the way it was. When you get into a city, you have gas pipelines running everywhere. So I happened to, for 3 years, while I lived there, I had a gas pipeline running in my backyard. These things are challenging. They really are. Putting in energy infrastructure is challenging for residents. A lot of people don't like wind farms. A lot of people don't like solar. Yes.
Curtis, 15 seconds.
15 seconds is...
Do you know my fire department and police department? Do you
Phil?
know what they're capable of?
I respect your position, and these are challenging, but I did answer your question. I happen to have one in my backyard.
All right.
I don't think so.
Robert Redsman,
Thank you.
followed by James Murray.
I'm not in a butter at this point, but looking at some of the alternate routes, it could potentially be, especially because there are power lines running right through my backyard. My concern is, without much space in our backyard as is anyways, first of all, and I'm not going to want this pipeline in my backyard pretty much no matter what, if it was to come through. Am I going to have any recourse, or why would I be convinced this is a good thing with the safety concerns for my family, my child, and the potential loss of property? Why should I see this as a good thing at all for me if I'm the property owner here?
Part of it's working through the process, and you certainly can be concerned about the risk and the pipeline, and that is what the FERC process is about. That is why you have the opportunity to have a voice, have an opinion, have concerns, and that is part of the process. We're proposing a project. It's on private properties. We're going through the FERC process, and at the end of the day, we're not deciding whether the project gets built. The federal government gets decided. So it's not us. We're proposing the project, and you have every right to participate in that process.
So more than likely, whether we want it or not, it's going to happen. And then number two, I know that your business is to make a profit, ultimately. That's what your goal is. So that being said, isn't there going to be a temptation to kind of let maintenance costs slide through the years? It's kind of what's happened with a lot of other infrastructure, like these utility projects. And then, like the explosion in North Dakota recently, there were shutoff valves that weren't working, and maintenance had really slid. What would be your motivation to maintain that if really you would save money?
The economics of operating a pipeline, it's like Lufthansa with their airplane going out of the sky. The last thing you'd want to do is have a failure or an incident, because it's far cheaper to operate the pipeline in a safe manner and not have any failures. So it's every pipeline operator is incented to operate it safely.
And I'd further like to say that I am an employee of Tennessee Gas Pipeline. This has been my career. I've done this for 35 years, and I'm proud to work with the gentlemen that I work with, and we all take what we do very seriously. The maintenance, the repairs, the discussions with landowners. The team that I am with is some of the finest men that I know, and I'm proud of that.
Okay. So the maintenance costs were, when you guys bought El Paso, they dropped within the first few years, like somewhere around 90%. That's what I read. How was that done? Was that done through cuts in like making things more efficient, or was that sort of scaling back what you do for maintenance?
I think there was some efficiency savings there. I don't think we scaled back. I'm like Jim. I'm a longtime employee with Tennessee Gas Pipeline, and I feel we've kept up with the facilities. We're still the leaders in our safety and what we do on our integrity management program. The amount of lines that we've made piggable where you could actually run pigs, we're way ahead of regulation timing on that. So I don't think there's a correlation there of cutting back just to save dollars. There's all the maintenance is still there, and like Curtis says, it's good business to run a safe pipeline.
I'm going to step in here for just a minute. We have exceeded the time that they've allotted. I'm going to thank them for doing that. I'm going to say I have 3 more people on this list. I'm not going to go to the third page. If you would be courteous enough to take these 3 people, that would be nice. So I'm going to say James Murray, Kathleen Rose, and Matthew Caron.
Thank you.
James? Thank you.
Gentlemen, all these lovely people that are here, we've gone through a process like this 30 years ago when somebody wanted to come in, had a nice slick panel here that wanted to put something in our backyard that we didn't want. You're not listening to us. I see the same reaction from you I saw 30 years ago. All right? Wait a minute. You're very slick in your presentations. You're very knowledgeable in what you do. I don't have a degree in engineering, okay? But I can tell when somebody's putting something over on us or trying to. You were in Massachusetts. You looked at what was going on there and said, oh, we can't do that. We're going to go up into New Hampshire and we're going to run a pipeline through there to get it back into Massachusetts to service all of those gas companies that you've got listed. On one of your pages there was like 3 in New Hampshire, and everything else was in Massachusetts or Connecticut. All right? All I'm saying is that this is not what we want. Period. End of story.
Kathleen?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Rose. I live on 83 Peasley Road. I abut the pipeline. 425 feet run along the public service transmission lines. I received a notice in October and one in December, and about a month and a half ago there was a pamphlet and Patty's ID card on my door. I called Patty up and told her that she wasn't allowed to survey on my property, and I asked her to give me a call as soon as possible. I have yet to hear from her, so it's at least opportunistic for me to be able to speak to you this evening. I'm not in favor of this pipeline basically because I don't think there is a current need, and since you people don't have buyers or even potential buyers at this point, I don't think it is needed. Recently, Spectra Energy created an agreement with the National Grid, Eversource, which is public service. So what I suspect is they're trying to work together to get that Spectra project up and running in Massachusetts. And that is the project that will increase the capacity by building a larger pipe next to the existing one. That Spectra system services Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, about half of New Hampshire, and it goes up the coast, I think up into Portland, that area. If you people could tell us that, yes, this gas is going to benefit New Hampshire in a definitive way, I would say all for it. But right now, there is no gas infrastructure to residential homes outside of the Nashua, Manchester, Concord corridor. And Liberty Utility, which is a subsidiary of Kinder Morgan.
It's not true.
No.
At all.
A wholly
Absolutely,
owned subsidiary.
100% not true.
So,
100% not
ladies and gentlemen,
finish with the question.
From what I've read,
100%.
there's some type of association, and I'll leave it at that.
They're a customer currently and on this project. That is the only association.
I'll let you say that. I disagree.
That's factual.
Kathleen, go on.
Wait a minute.
Spectra.
Matt,
let her finish.
Curtis,
Since
let them finish.
Since Spectra has created an agreement with National Grid, with Eversource, and a couple of other companies to build that pipeline, how are you going to negotiate with those companies if they already have an agreement with Spectra.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Liberty Utilities can, I'm sorry, I thought you were waving at me. I apologize. Liberty Utilities has talked to Spectra the whole time. They chose us. There's a reason why they chose us. It's just, the bottom line is they got to prove to the PUC this is the smartest decision. If there's a smarter decision, the PUC is going to turn it down. Their project is a competing project which largely serves a different geographical region of the country. She accurately described the service territory. It comes up from Rhode Island, serves the southeast part, right? Their project is needed. Our project's needed. You got a big challenge here in New England. Liberty Utilities could have gone with their project. There are 115,000 decatherms a day on our project for a reason. They're the largest utility in New Hampshire. Their parent company is an equity investor in our project. This relationship with Grid is our largest customer on our project. They also are an equity investor in Spectra's Access Northeast project. She's totally correct about that. They're a 20% owner. Spectra is a 40% owner. Northeast Utility is a 40% owner. If they get customers and they build their project, it's an investment. They have to go out and secure customers. I hope they're successful. We want them to be successful. These pipelines are needed. They are. Now, maybe they're not needed right here for you in your position. You don't want it. I understand that. But the largest utility in your state has said, we want this project. We have need for this project. We have growth plans. There's a reason why they chose us.
Thank you, Curtis. Matt?
Matt.
Last one.
Thanks. Matt Karen, I represent the Merrimack Conservation Commission tonight. I'm sure you've been through nature preserves in the past. So based on that, once the pipeline, if it were to be installed, was installed, what limitations do you normally place on public lands as far as like trail easements and things like that? We have continuous trails that run east-west where you're looking north-south. What are we left with?
Matt, we absolutely work with joint use rights of way, and depending upon the type of trails and how they're designed, what we would ask is that we work with you to see how you're going to construct them, what type of equipment we're going to use, how they're going to cross over us, how they're going to be improved, whether it's dirt or pavement. All of that techniques are reviewed with us, and we work with you to get those in.
And
one quick follow-up.
As well, wetlands. You'd be crossing many wetlands, many different ponds. With that, you'd have to do wetlands mitigation. Have you ever heard of an ARM fund, a DS ARM fund?
I personally haven't.
I haven't, but one of it, during the process, there may be where we have to do mitigation on-site, off-site, maybe just restoration on the site. So that's part of the process we're in now, to identify the lands, identify what's needed to go through the process. I'm not familiar with that.
And get the permits.
Yeah, the
to be able to do it. The SCC process that will go through concurrently.
So there's a long process to be able to permit wetlands and get the land rights and permit the wetlands is the process we're up against right now.
You've been in New Hampshire for 50 years, and you've never come across working with ARM in the past?
I haven't.
Why don't you describe more?
We'll follow up on that.
We're not environmentalists. If we had our environmental team, they would easily answer that. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
We have her back.
Merrimack, I'm very proud of you. No, Don, we're done. Sorry. I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of the way you handled yourselves tonight. There was a lot of respect and civility and information that was garnered. Thank you very much for making my job easy. Nancy, do you have anything to say? Town Council is reconvening immediately after this. So if you want to hear anything more, welcome to it.
No, we're not going to. Just you do your thing.
Mr. Mahon still around?
Everybody's left. And now the power of what they've got to say is there's no value.
Yes.
I would like to reconvene the town council meeting, please. Would everyone please be seated? If you'd like to continue your conversation, please take it out to the lobby. You notice how they're noticing.
No, they don't care.
What time is it? It looks like it's 10:40. I would like to reconvene the town council meeting. Note at 10:40. First of all, I would also like to add my prideness, I guess is the word, as Lynn said, and how everyone conducted themselves this evening. I thought a lot of very thoughtful questions were asked. I'm impressed with those questions, so I want to thank you very much for that. This section of the town council, we deliberately wanted to be able to have an opportunity to discuss what we thought of it and what ideas we might have. So I will open up the council for discussion.
Would the chair entertain a motion?
I certainly would. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With a lot of further ado, I move that the town council, Merrimack Town Council, stand in strong opposition to the current proposal for the Northeast Direct Project, Northeast Energy Direct Project of Kinder Morgan / Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company, LLC.
I second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Koenig. Would you like to address that motion, Councillor Woods?
If I may. I believe the Northeast Energy Direct Project is replete with risk and bereft of benefit as it pertains to the town of Merrimack. Regarding risk, of grave concern to me is the inherent danger of a pipeline of this size as proposed and the danger it poses to residents and the property it may impact. Further, the proposed NED project route through Merrimack crosses municipally owned and protected conservation lands, which protect identified endangered species, and there, as well as other wildlife habitats, numerous wetlands, permanent open space, recreational trails and lands. It proposes to cross two major protected rivers, one of the town's major sewer interceptor lines, and may have impacts on mitigation land related to the U.S. Environmental Agency, EPA Superfund site. It also negatively impacts wellhead protection areas and other waterworks infrastructure of the Merrimack Village District. Regarding benefit, to my mind, there is no measurable value added to the town. Reduced energy costs to the region are not concretely defined, and there is no increase in the natural gas supply to the town of Merrimack. Where's the benefit? Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I ask for support for the motion.
Councillor Koenig, would you like to add
I just
anything?
briefly want to expound upon the idea that there's an inherent danger of the pipeline of this size going through the town of Merrimack, going through people's backyards, only because they want to follow an electric supply line that they say after the fact they really can't follow except to go alongside of, which means it goes through people's property and picks that route for no other reason except that half of their easement goes into a non-populated area. And I think it impacts people and, very importantly, serves no benefit to the town of Merrimack. The chances of us getting an increased gas supply or reduced electricity are just pie-in-the-sky type things. And at this point, I don't see enough benefit to take on the risk and the concerns and the issues to not only the environment, but to the people of this town of Merrimack. Thank you.
Would any other councilors like to make some comments? Or yes, Finley?
Thank you, Nancy. There is no direct benefit to Merrimack, and I totally concur with that. I think the benefit is actually to the greater picture. As a nation, we really, some would like to wean totally off of fossil fuels. I don't see that in the near future. And I think the greater picture, in order to accommodate those things, is to get cheaper gas and fuels into our energy system. But that being said, the route that Kinder Morgan is proposing is not a good route. The fact that it left Massachusetts is bothersome to me because its terminus is in Massachusetts, and it just seemed fit where it entered the state. It should continue. I half suspect that at the federal level, their representatives were dead against it and really made a lot of noise about it, where that didn't really happen here in New Hampshire that I'm aware of. Coming through, the biggest obstacle for me is our wellhead area. I just really am very concerned. Back when Home Depot was constructed, they did have issues with blasting and infiltration of whatever the chemical they use for blasting getting into the groundwater area. And so that's a huge concern, where it's been pointed out by Lon that 50% of the town's water is coming from those two wells. So for that reason, I'm supporting the motion.
Anyone else like to make any comments? Councilor Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to my colleagues and to the community. I waited, let me retract and rephrase. We waited 98 days for Kinder Morgan to come here and to give this presentation. 98 days. An invitation was extended to them on December 15th in this community, the 8th largest community in New Hampshire, the largest community impacted by this pipeline, sat around and waited for Kinder Morgan to show up. I don't know if it was them being impolite or a callous disregard for our community. Regardless, at the end of the day, as we've all listened to and doing our own homework, to me the most compelling piece against the pipeline is our wellhead. 85% of our communities, and I talked about this in my scoping letter to FERC, 85% of our mercantile, business, and residential people get water from Merrimack Village District. Close to 50 to 60% of that water comes from this particular wellhead. And based on that particular fact alone is the reason why I am dead set against the pipeline as it is proposed tonight. Mrs. Rose, who was here earlier, actually brought up one of my particular points that I was thinking about, and she deserves to be commended. The 6 New England governors in the NESCO report endorsed 600 million cubic feet of gas to accentuate the energy situation that exists in New England. The proposed Spectra Energy Pipeline proposes to bring 1.1 billion cubic feet of gas. Why do we need the Kinder Morgan pipeline coming through our own neighborhood? They're talking about 2.2 billion cubic feet of gas. I can talk about the stuff that I've read regarding KMI, which is their trading symbol on the Dow Jones, and I can talk to you about how every particular industry analyst is bullish on Kinder Morgan based on the NED project. I can also tell you that Rich Kinder has publicly spoken and testified before the United States Senate Committee on Energy that with Putin's land grab in the Ukraine, there is a greater need for natural gas to be sent over to Western and Eastern Europe, which means he wants to figure out a way to export gas. The only way that he can do it is to get on that maritime pipeline, and the only way that he can do it is with Liberty Utilities, because Liberty Utilities is the only contract that he has right now. Without that contract, the way that I read the FERC regs, they would not have the ability to build a pipeline. because the pipeline relates to interstate commerce, domestic distribution, not international. I'm not an educated man, but I did my homework like we all did. And what I read may be speculation, may be fact, it may be fiction, but I'm sorry, I can read between the lines, folks. And at the end of the day, we waited 98 days for this presentation. And after the invitation, and you can look at their schedule. They had 3 meetings on January 5th, and then they sat around for 8 weeks. And one of the question was, well, what were you doing for the last 8 weeks? I'm done pontificating. I know people want to go home. So I just wanted to publicly express my opposition to the pipeline, and I support Councilor Woods' motion and Councilor Koenig's second. Thank you.
Anyone else want to say anything before I do? First of all, I'd never say Councilor Boyd pontificates. I don't know where that could possibly come from. Neither am I going to pontificate, whatever say that. Anyway, there is a lot of pros and cons. We've already researched a lot. We heard a lot of it tonight. A lot of it was unsaid. We only had a certain amount of time. But I know when I met with the neighborhood a couple of months ago, I ended the conversation by saying, it sounds like, and it still fits now, that we're taking all the risk and we're getting no benefit. And nothing's changed since then. So I will be supporting this motion as well. So if we're all ready, you want to take a vote, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? None. 700.
Madam Chairwoman. Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, Councilor Boyd.
In response to the unanimous opposition to the NED pipeline, I would like to make a motion that the Merrimack Town Council, in writing, express this unanimous opposition to our governor and our federal delegation, asking them for them to recognize the fact that Merrimack, the 8th largest community in New Hampshire, the largest community on this pipeline, is in strenuous opposition to this project.
Motion made by Councilor Boyd, second by Councilor Woods. Would you like to speak to the motion, Bill? Or is it self-explanatory?
I was going to speak Latin and say res et loquitur, which means the thing speaks for itself, but I'll just politely decline it.
I think he said the thing speaks for itself.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion, Finley?
Just, is this letter going to include touching on some of the reasons that we've spoken about?
My hope is I trust Eileen. Councilor Rothaus raises a good question, and I agree with him. I trust Eileen to craft the appropriate response that would be commensurate to some of the other letters that we've sent to the federal delegation, but also high level expresses the concerns that we feel are pertinent to our opposition to the project.
Anyone else? I'd like to recommend that it be reviewed by every town councilor and that every councilor sign it as well.
I would agree with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's vote on the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? None. 700. Okay. I don't have any other new business. Any comments from the press? Wendy, I didn't know you became part of the press corps.
You're going to make her sit down when there's no press.
I was going to say this. Comments from the public.
Now that you are publicly against the pipeline, will you rescind permission to survey Horse Hill?
Can I speak to that?
I didn't get the question.
Are we going
Could
to
you
rescind the
repeat?
survey?
Go ahead. Councilor Boyd, if you'd like to answer.
I still think, for me personally, as one vote, I still think it behooves us to do our own due diligence. I mean, we just spent money on hiring an attorney who made that recommendation, and I think it would be disingenuous to the taxpayer of this community to take that advice and that money and basically say, we're doing something different now. I think we need to follow through, continue to follow through. That's my opinion.
But that decision was made before you took this vote. Now you're against the pipeline. That doesn't, it does, if you're against it, it doesn't make
I
sense.
still think the survey protects us.
I get it.
I think it protects our public lands. I really do.
Councillor Woods?
Yeah, it's not a matter of non-cooperation. In fact, the process begs for cooperation from everyone. Witness tonight's meeting, the public, Kinder Morgan, Tennessee Gas Pipeline. I mean, you've got a tinderbox. Lynn Christensen, by the way, is to be commended for the way she scoped that meeting. But my motion was in no way intended to be putting the council, and I don't think Mr. Boyd's motion was intending to put the council in an anti-cooperative mood. I believe you can be against something, and I am wholeheartedly. I'm not waffling, and still cooperate with a known process for the most benefit of the community. We may win the fight, we may not.
Yeah.
But I would rather win it fighting for you all the way, having everybody know that we don't think it's a good thing for Merrimack. Does that make sense? Okay, thanks.
Yeah. It's good.
Does anyone else want to comment? The only comment, Wendy, I'd like to respond to just for a moment is, I think you touched on it when this motion doesn't negate our need to be actively participating in the process. And I do understand that there's differences of opinion, even legal opinion, related to the need or the advantage or disadvantage of the survey. And I don't think, I agree, the motion doesn't change what personally I feel is the advice that we're receiving and the rationale behind it. Because down the road, we need to be able to present due process that we have all of the resources that we have that are threatened, that we're concerned about. We're going to fight for it, and we have to be able to have the data to fight for it. So that's my perception.
Yeah.
I understand it's a different of opinion, but...
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Nancy, can I just amplify?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Wendy, but just very, very quickly to amplify on what Councilor Woods and Chairman Harrington said. If they change the route,
that's a whole different.
We need to be prepared. I pardon my expression. I don't want to get caught with my pants down on this. Yeah. Okay, we've made a commitment. We've made a commitment to the community that we're going to be represented by an attorney. We're going to follow that through. And I've told you. Energy laws are arcane. People don't like my Sanskrit reference, but we need somebody that understands it. And this process right now continues to be fluid. We need to be able to be nimble to address any fluidity, any changes in that fluidity that may occur.
Well, it's those changes that really concern me. I mean, as we heard tonight, this could change on a daily basis. I mean, I get it. I just... Yeah, I have some concerns, but I appreciate your views.
Thank you, Wendy.
I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for the very careful, precise work you've done in doing your homework and looking at all the facts and looking at all sides and listening to all sides respectfully. I deeply appreciate how you've handled this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.
Looking forward from this point, now that these decisions have been made, still we are faced with the hope of gaining a scoping meeting in this town. Would it be possible, please, to look at the webpage for the town and actually add a comment from you folks encouraging people to do so? Not just a statement saying, if you'd like to, please use these directions in order to submit this request, but actually encouraging people to do so and explaining to them what the difference is between a scoping meeting and the meeting we just had. I, just last weekend, had conversations with in excess of 5 people who didn't even know about the pipeline, didn't know what the meeting was about tonight, had no idea what a scoping meeting was, and were in no position to make a decision one way or another. So I would really appreciate that. I know you've gone out of your way to try and inform the public, but I really think another step would be needed. So thank you.
Just to clarify for record, your name again?
My name's Kim Dinsmore. I live at 4 Whittier Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kim, calling them out on the map was beautiful. That was beautiful. Beautiful. I was impressed with that. Great job.
One of the things I'd just like to make a comment to you about is, and it's going to skip my mind, I was hoping that more people would stay because I wanted to be able to emphasize the scoping meeting too.
I'm sure.
I know. So we wanted to be able to, I also wanted to say, could you guys volunteer for town boards too? But they left on that.
It's such a late hour, and I don't know
Oh, I understand.
to stay for that. So
You're
if
absolutely.
that could be posted, that would be so helpful.
Well, I think the vote has to be posted as well. I mean, I think there has to be a notification of the continuing changing of events, and this is certainly a change of events, so that has to be publicized as well.
Hi, Carol Lee Dalton. I just have one comment, and I don't know how we go about this. We need to get the state level involved, and I would ask that you put it on your agenda to brainstorm and figure out the best way to do it. Is one letter from our town going to be enough, or what is it going to take to get them to pay attention and get engaged to fight this pipeline, not just for us, but for all the communities in New Hampshire? So I'm just putting it out there as an action item.
Well, I'll tell you, from being married to a state rep, could I give his name out? It's not Harrington. Anyway.
I hear he's a pretty straight guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty straight guy. Anyway, they do respond to phone calls and letters. So we will send a letter. But to have it reinforced by residents, they listen to you guys more than they do us. So that's what I would encourage people to do.
Okay.
Now, also remember, let's be realistic about this. We're not the decision makers. To a certain extent, FERC could care less what we think. The same thing with the state. The federal government has the authority.
Right.
And it's our responsibility to give the data to FERC to fight it. That's what we have to do. And that's what our focus has been up to now and will continue to be.
Right.
And that's what our legislators and our representatives have to be able to push on FERC too. They can't stop it, but they can do what they can to influence it. So that's
right. I understand that. And a lot of the articles about why they changed from New Hampshire to Massachusetts said Massachusetts was very vocal. So we need our legislators to be very vocal in this as well. So anything the town can come up with and, encourage and even put it on the website to tell citizens what to do or how to go about this and become part of the process and to fight this. I would ask you to do that.
I remember we put everything we've received from FERC on the website.
Mm-hmm.
If there's some citizen request to be put on the website,
Absolutely.
hint. Okay, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
We're trying to be able to provide both sides. So
Yep.
if there's information you also want put on the website, we can't get behind it. We make it available to the public. That's our responsibility.
Okay.
In my
Thank you.
opinion.
Thanks.
First of all, I want to thank you for having this meeting tonight and for being here so late. Just a question or food for thought. Now that we've come to this decision, I know Mason has, I know Amherst has, I know many other towns have. Is there any effort where the towns can join force and go to the state level and to FERC? I don't know, but I got the sense something like that happened in Mass.
Well, I don't know, Eileen, I'm not sure if you want to address this. I'll just mention, I know that the town managers of the towns are getting together, and they're talking about those kind of things. But it's sort of limited in terms of participation.
To be really frank with you, I'm not really sure that it's really been of any value. Paul and I go to the meetings, and there's sometimes representatives from 4 communities, sometimes 5, but definitely never 17. Sometimes it's a community with 1,200 people, and that kind of thing. And they're even though the impression some people get is that Merrimack is behind what everyone else is doing, we're actually way ahead of what they're doing. And the reason why I say that is because rather than having the council just come out emotionally and say we're against it, they are building the tools and gathering the information that will influence it. So anyway, we go to the meetings, and they're not represented by Londonderry doesn't go, and they talk about hiring an attorney collectively, and they interviewed one guy, and they're talking now about interviewing somebody else. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, like I said, it was just an idea, but
it's a great idea. It's a great idea if it worked.
Yeah,
it really is. We
the
try.
The more we can communicate with FERC.
We're way ahead of most of the communities.
Great. Thank you.
Tom Mahan?
Yeah, and I want to, reiterate that. We're at a huge advantage to towns west of Milford. And we have professional staff. We have a very, extensive GIS system that we've invested in over the years. And those investments are starting to pay off for us right now. And when you talk to the NRPC and when you talk to the other towns, like I said, especially west of Milford, they don't have that level of sophistication. They don't have the full-time trained professionals in a lot of positions in those towns. They're limited means. They're trying to do the best that they can with what they have. And that's why a lot of this is falling on Milford and Amherst and Merrimack, is because we're the last ones in the line before you cross the river. But we've also got the infrastructure in place that we've been building for the last 40 years in this town, in this region, to come up with that and to be able to do that. And like Nancy and Eileen said, we're way ahead of them because of those factors. We can move a lot quicker, and we can gather a lot of pertinent information from our perspective that we can provide to the federal government to deal with these particular issues. So it's a nice idea to try to do that. We do keep in touch with them. But, they're, as Eileen said, sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 7. It's a matter of their ability to absorb the information and to deal with issues at the level that we're dealing with them. And no offense, I know those people out there. I used to work with them with my previous employment. They're interested, they're hardworking, they're committed, but they don't have the tools. So, that's all. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to respond to that question? No? I think so. I knew we were going to hear from you.
Well, I'm not here to berate you.
Is she trying to censor you?
I don't know. I feel like I'm at the Planet Fitness, and no judgment zone. I want to thank you for your decision that you made this evening. I know it was probably a hard one. I know early on I contacted all of you. I've said that several times. But I also outreach to all the communities, the select area, the select boards of all these other towns. So I understand your frustration because they don't get back to me either. It's going to be hard to get a hold of everybody, but that was I was going to say the same thing, is even if you did it via email, Eileen, maybe gets people to pull together, the towns. I think it would be really important that they just did the new eminent domain law, which if I had got up one more time, I was going to ask. Okay. In regards to the eminent domain law, that they were going to make it more difficult, and the last person to sign off on this is going to be the governor. I do know that she is supporting this pipeline, or in part has led that direction. Being the 8th largest town in the state, I don't know how much influence we have with other cities to maybe lean on her, to sway her.
We do.
I don't know. So if you guys could help out, I mean, it would probably help out. I've also bothered all the state reps as well.
Yes, you have.
I don't want to say most. There's a percentage that are for the pipeline, or they were early on, like Mr. Dwyer was. Okay. I'm glad you changed your mind.
I think that's a real issue, though. I think we wanted to be a little bit more disciplined in making a decision exactly for what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, there was, in the beginning, you guys were behind. Well, let me finish, Finn.
Let him finish.
In the beginning, because I spoke to all of you, and I did speak to you, Finn, and at Thanksgiving, you weren't aware of what's going on at that point. And I'm not saying that you weren't doing your homework. Now you guys are beyond where the other towns are in your information, and I'm applauding you for that, Finn, so that's what I wanted to say. At that time, the motion did take a hold of some of these people. We paid attention to, not that you weren't, you got a lot going on with the town management. We engulfed ourselves in this, and we had a big network of people that dove into different areas and pulled up the research, and that's why I was imploring you guys to... Anyway, I'm going on. Thank you very much.
Do you want to say something?
I'll wait for comments.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you very much to all of you for your support, because it's been enormously stressful and worrisome with everything about the pipeline for many reasons, and all of your support tonight has been an enormous help, and I think with a lot of teamwork, and if we all keep doing and reaching out to who we need to reach out to, I hope we win this. I really do. So thank you.
If I may speak as an interloper from Mason, we are probably...
Could you just give your name, please, sir?
This Douglas Whitbeck from Mason. We are probably the smallest town on the route. We probably have more miles of pipeline than any of the other towns on the route, thanks to a spur down to Fitchburg. At the town meeting, people voted unanimously to approve $80,000 to fight this. Kinder Morgan's lawyers can go through that over lunch.
That's true.
It's true. Very true.
This is after we bought a new police car and a new bucket loader. This is not like Mason. We tend to be a little tight with the money. But I will say we are working with the other towns along the pipeline. There's a group called New Hampshire Plan that spent the last 2 days in Concord trying to share information with legislators, and we hope to influence the decision of our governor, and we thank you very much for your support tonight.
Welcome. Any other comments from the public? Okay, comments from the council. Finley, you wanted to say something?
I'm not opposed to the pipeline as a pipeline. I think the infrastructure, I think Dan spoke to this earlier on, which I think may have been misunderstood by people. But I'm not opposed to the pipeline. I'm opposed to the route through Merrimack for the multitude of reasons that have been pointed out. And you know, again, for me, I mentioned it earlier, the fact that of the diversion up to New Hampshire when the straightest route would have been to continue through Massachusetts, it just doesn't smell right. So I'm opposed to the pipeline through the route that Kinder Morgan proposed through Merrimack. That's what I'm opposed to.
Any other council members want to make comments? We've all commented out, huh? Okay. Well, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'm going to give Tom Mahan that first motion and Bill Boyd second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No fighting in there.
Non-debatable motion.